Timeless Assassin by author Raj_Shah_ 7152 Chapter 176-200. Leo did not care if his opponent was a Grand Master or Master. To him, it made little difference as to whom he was smashing. However, the fact that Sam had hidden his breakthrough until the last moment exposed just how flawed and poor Rodova's scouting system really was. Their entire B team had fallen, one after the other, simply because their opponents did not match what they expected or prepared for, and now the opponent even had an unexpected Grandmaster in their ranks, which could make things difficult for Leo. Lesson learned. Never trust these idiots. Only believe what your eyes see, Leo thought, assuming his fighting stance once more, as he locked eyes with his opponent. Cheers. The Rodova fans cheered for him louder once they found out that his opponent was a Grandmaster, as if the cheers would somehow make the fight easier for him to win. However, Leo blocked all the noises and chants out, as he became absolutely focused once again. Facing him, the button captain stood with perfect posture, spear resting across his shoulders. The polished obsidian shaft gleamed under the dual suns, while the arena's flat grasslands shimmered with wind. Sam's aura was calm and focused. He did not flinch when Leo looked into his eyes, nor did his body radiate malice or bloodlust, as he projected just sharp, unwavering intent. Begin, the referee declared at that moment, as Sam surged forward, his body a blur as he launched a precise opening thrust, his spear tip aiming for Leo's ribs. I can see it coming, Leo thought, as he did not dodge prematurely. He stepped to the side by an inch, just enough, and countered with a flick of his wrist. Clang! Asterisk. Sparks flew as Leo's dagger kissed the side of the spear and knocked it off course. His speed is a lot slower than mine. He's refined as a spearmaster, but not faster, Leo noted, as that single exchange was enough for him to gauge his opponent's speed. Sam didn't hesitate. After Leo parried his first thrust, with a fluid spin, he brought the spear around in a sweeping arc and leapt into the air. Gale Spiral. The spear twisted with wind mana, generating a whirlwind as it descended toward Leo's position. However, Leo simply disappeared under the attack using Vanish. Whoosh. Asterisk. The spear slammed into the earth, tearing a chunk of grass and dirt into the sky, but missing its intended target. Where? Sam wondered, as Leo understood that his opponent did not have a perception technique that could see through Vanish, which made this fight heavily skewed in his favor, as he easily circled to Sam's back. Swoosh. Leo attacked, however, much to his surprise. Sam, who pretended like he could not see him, twisted, just in time to deflect the attack midair with a reverse grip on his spear. Clang. Clang. Asterisk. Gale Spiral. Sam tried to counter with a Gale Spiral, but Leo dodged with a backflip, as he created distance between himself and Sam, just to make sure that he did not walk into some elaborate trap and so that he could reset the fight tempo on his terms. Oh. The audience gasped at the fast exchange, the Rodova fans wiping their sweat as they saw Leo dodging narrowly. However, the more observant fans knew that he had this under control and was never under real threat. Clash. Clash. The duo clashed again, as Sam pushed forward yet again. However, this time instead of using skills, Leo moved with surgical precision, staying just outside Sam's full reach, forcing the spearman to chase shadows. For a few seconds, Sam tried his best to chase Leo, but soon he realized that he did not have the pace to keep up with Leo, as he adjusted and backed off, channeling mana into his legs instead as he prepared another special move. Sundering thrust, he declared, as the ground cracked beneath his feet as he shot forward with an explosive burst. Whistle. The spear in his hand tore through the air with a whistling sound as it aimed to pierce through Leo's chest. But Leo was faster. He dropped his weight and twisted his torso, letting the spear graze just above his shoulder. As Leo countered with Mirror World, surrounding Sam with countless clones in the blink of an eye. Cheer. The crowd roared, as this was the exact type of flashy move that got their blood pumping. Even Sam looked confused for a second. What is this? Some kind of illusion technique? Sam muttered out loud, as he seemed to be unable to spot the real one amongst the fakes, giving Leo the chance he needed to take the upper hand in this fight. Slash! Slash! Two clones slashed wildly at Sam, blocking and covering his whole vision, as Sam quickly dismantled them using Gale Spiral. However, while he was busy with the clones, the real Leo darted in from the other side and delivered a deep slash across Sam's thigh. Thud! Asterisk. Sam stumbled, blood trickling down his leg, as the commentators went wild. Skyshard draws first blood. Derek screamed. He's taking the offensive lead. He added, as Sam gritted his teeth and shifted tactics. Realizing that him limping in the fight from now on would make dodging Leo's attacks very difficult, he decided to throw a Hail Mary to hopefully even the odds. Heaven Piercer form, he declared, as once activated, mana covered his entire body, like a blazing fire. Sam then shifted into a wider stance that looked like the start of a chain move that could dominate the entire space around him, as his plan seemed to be to hold his ground with minimal movement. It's a bold move, but nothing I've never seen before. He's trying to corner me into range and then box me with the spear's orbit. Unfortunately, I've trained against opponents that did it much better than him, Leo thought as he smirked. He tossed a dagger forward, intentionally slow as Sam blocked it with ease, but didn't notice the shadow that moved with the blade. Shadow Bind. Leo used Shadow Bind to lock Sam's foot in place, as by the time Sam noticed, it was already too late. What the? He muttered as Leo closed the distance, but before he could break free, Leo broke past his guard, dismantling his technique, as with cold efficiency, he feinted a slash to the arm, before actually targeting the legs, as he took the other leg as well. Slash! Sam crashed to the ground, as with both his leg nerves severed, he couldn't support his own weight anymore. In making the most of this opening, Leo planted his dagger at the base of Sam's neck, but did not pierce it all the way as he waited for the referee to call the match. For a second there was only frozen silence. The crowd and referee looked stunned. Then, the referee quickly pushed Leo off Sam's back, calling the victory for Rodova, as only then did the breath return to the audience. Cheers! The crowd went mental over Leo's win. From 4-0 down he had clutched the win 4-5 for Rodova, in what was undoubtedly one of the best solo performances by a junior-year fighter. It's over, Lee whispered. It's done. Skyshard wins. Rodova survives. Derek screamed, as the referee raised his hand in victory. Winner, Leo Skyshard. Winner Rodova Military Academy. The referee announced, as Leo gave the crowd a small thumbs up before walking off like nothing happened. He stepped over his opponent's crying body without a word, eyes cold and expression unreadable. He did not bother with things like sportsmanship or consoling the loser. He did not bother celebrating. He did not even bother with looking back. To him, this wasn't glory. It was what had to be done, and hence he did not gloat in it at all. Rodova team room, post-match. The door to the Rodova warm-up area hissed open with a soft pneumatic whoosh as Leo stepped inside lazily after his win. But before he could take a single step forward, he was swarmed. Duplessis, eyes red and nose running, barreled toward him like a toddler spotting his parent after a nightmare. Bro! He wailed, throwing his arms around Leo with a half laugh, half sob. You saved us. You actually saved us. I can't even imagine the backlash I'd have faced if you hadn't won that. I would have had to change my name to something different from shame. Coley joined in, gripping Leo's arm as if it were a lifeline. Forget going back into the academy halls, I wouldn't be able to show my face in the entire star system. My own father would have disowned me, man. Drake followed, nodding fervently. They'd have written songs mocking us, the Rodova clowns, performed galaxy-wide. But you shut them up. Boxer dropped to his knees, arms raised to the heavens. All hail Skyshard. The man, the myth, the last strand of our dignity. Tears flowed freely, some real, some exaggerated for dramatic effect. Their faces, earlier smug and cocky before the match began, were now wrinkled with shame and wet with gratitude. Leo stood in the center of the chaos, surrounded, suffocated. He didn't return a single hug. Didn't speak a single word. Idiots, he cursed silently, his jaw tightening. They think this is all a joke. That I bailed them out because we're friends. He did not pat their backs, offer smiles, or ease their guilt. He let them squirm. He let the silence linger. Because they deserved to feel it. Then, the heavy air in the team room shifted suddenly, as the main chamber doors slammed open behind them. Bang! Asterisk. Yu Shen entered with a thundercloud over his face, flanked by Su Yang, Minerva, Instructor Hen, Professor David, and Nian Fei, as all eyes turned. Yu Shen's gaze landed on the 4 fallen fighters, and he exploded. "You're all a disgrace to Rodova," he shouted, jabbing his finger at them like it was a blade, as the room trembled with his fury. Duplessis, Boxer, Coley, and Drake instantly lowered their eyes like scolded children. You couldn't even beat Button Academy. Button. They had one real fighter, and the rest were barely scraping by. And still, you managed to roll over like damn amateurs. His voice cracked with rage. You were arrogant, lazy, unprepared, and worst of all, you made the entire galaxy laugh at Rodova today. The number 1 seed. The so-called giants, reduced to clowns. Each word hit harder than the last. No one dared breathe. Yu Shen stepped closer. Don't even think about asking for another chance to redeem yourself after this. Your time in the circuits is over. You're done. It was mercy from me that I allowed you to fight today. That I trusted you to do your jobs and maybe earn sponsorships that could change your life, but no. I was a fool. And I will never make the same mistake again. None of you are fighting in the circuits again. A beat of silence followed, before Instructor Hen stepped forward, arms crossed, expression like ice. I agree with the captain, Hen said sternly. You shamed this academy with your performance. Geneva, Clarence, the entire top 16, they're laughing right now. And why wouldn't they? You gave them a comedy show. Even David, ever the softy for commoners, couldn't hold back his tongue as he said, what the hell was that showboating Duplessis? You had your opponent beat, but you threw that match away for fucking photographs and fame. It's because of idiots like you that people believe commoners are inferior to nobles. Why wouldn't they? When the best of commoners are idiots like you. I hope you're all proud. Because your foolishness forced Leo to expose skills he should have saved for the semifinals. Faye said last, as she reminded them that Leo had to reveal a few of his cards prematurely because of them. Cards that he should have held for later rounds. However, because of their stupidity, they had not only jinxed this round but also Leo's future fights. The mood in the room plummeted. No one dared speak, even the usually sharp-tongued Drake. Then, finally, Yu Shen turned his eyes toward Leo, his anger melting. A moment passed. Then he stepped forward and bowed slightly. Good one, Skyshard, I owe you one, Yu Shen said, his voice calmer now. You saved Rodova's name from being dragged through the dirt. You reminded everyone why we're number 1. And you also taught me my lesson to never gamble with fools again. Yu Shen said, as Leo acknowledged his words with a simple nod. Su Yang stepped forward next, a relaxed grin on his face as he extended a hand towards Leo. I told him you had it under control, he said, gesturing towards Yu Shen, as Leo took the handshake, gripping it firmly. Of course I wasn't going to be taken down by those clowns, like I know you wouldn't either. He replied, as the two shared a small nod of mutual respect, before grinning wildly. It wasn't glazing. It was just two wolves, acknowledging each other, while the rest in the room watched their bromance bud silently. The circuits weren't over yet, and the rounds were only going to get tougher and tougher from here on out. However, while the Rodova team undoubtedly faced a humiliating setback today, through Leo's brilliance they were still in the tournament and still had a shot at winning it all. Hence, once the scolding had been imparted, and the congratulations were given, the Rodova team dove straight into planning and strategizing for tomorrow's fight. As if one good thing came from today's scare, it was that it woke everyone up to the true unpredictable nature of this competition. A change that Leo had been desperately waiting for since he joined the team a few weeks ago. As finally, the atmosphere around the team felt focused and serious for a change. Sky God Arena, afternoon, spectator stands. The entire Rodova team sat huddled together in the spectator stands, some members still wearing their battle gear, as they looked like a bunch of misplaced interns rather than tournament fighters. Yu Shen sat just behind them alongside the professors, his voice from earlier still echoing in the entire team's head. No more over-reliance on tape reviews. No more second-hand data. From now on, every member will use their own eyes for scouting. You will sit down and watch every match play out, make your own notes and then contribute positively during the evening as the team sits down to review footage. So here they sat, the number 1 seeded team, forced to attend a live scouting session like misbehaving students in detention. None of them said much. Even Enzo, normally full of snide remarks, remained quiet as they watched Geneva Military Academy step onto the battlefield. Unlike Rodova, Geneva had not repeated the same mistake of sending out their benchwarmers. Captain Ramos himself led the first wave of fights, taking the opening 2 matches with suffocating dominance. He didn't play around. Every move was surgical, precise, the kind of fighting that left no room for luck or theatrics. And after Ramos' clean opening victories, Geneva rotated in Darnell Nuna for the remaining bouts. The boy was slim, dressed in muted colors with a standard issue blade and barely any armor. But he moved with such smoothness that it left even Leo star-eyed. He was light on his feet, dangerous in his positioning, quicker than he looked, and efficient. But what truly caught Leo's eye wasn't just his fighting technique, but rather his behavior. "Ooh, you've got some belly fat," he chirped mid-duel to one opponent, his eyes sparkling with innocent curiosity. "Your tummy jiggles when you move." The crowd chuckled. The opponent, flustered and red-faced, tried to strike back harder but this overreach left himself open to a counter. "Haha, you're unbelievably slow," Darnell noted with the tone of someone observing cloud shapes, not someone fighting a serious bout. As he did not seem to say it to taunt the opponent. He just said it, as if completely unaware of how the words landed. As if he did not care about his opponent's emotions, or how his words will make him look in front of the crowd. He's like a big kid, one that's never emotionally matured. He's a top fighter, but he still has that childish innocence in him, Leo thought, leaning forward in his seat as he narrowed his eyes. Such personality for an adult is only created when they've grown up in an extremely sheltered environment, with their family protecting them from everything wrong in the world. This is undoubtedly a sheltered brat, Leo concluded, as just as he was thinking about this, the Jumbotron cut to the scene of a tall man wearing pitch black robes in the crowd. As watching the man's face and the insignia on his chest, Leo instantly felt his heart skip a beat. Slash, stab, blood, flashes from his ghost sleep, sent goosebumps rising on his sleep, as he instantly recognized the man being displayed on the screen. That man was the Monarch-level fighter who killed his ancestor. That man was the Black Serpent Guildmaster. And there he is, the Black Serpent Guildmaster. Monarch Dupravel Nuna in the flesh, watching his son fight in the circuits. He must be proud of how his son is dominating, Lee Dixon said over the speakerphone, as the crowd cheered wildly for Dupravel. Imagine the pressure you must feel if you're Darnell Nuna, knowing that your great father is watching you fight from the crowd. Haha, I'd wet my pants if I were him, Derek added, as Lee chuckled at his joke. Well, we all know how much Dupravel loves his only son. He'll probably be fine even if he loses, Lee replied, as Darnell defeated the final fighter from North Star Academy. And that's it folks, Darnell Nuna, the rising assassin star from Geneva, brings home the victory for their team, helping Geneva advance to the round of 16. Derek announced, as Darnell began jumping and backflipping in joy, bowing to the crowd and his father sitting in the stands in happiness. Leo blinked. Did that kid is the Black Serpent Guildmaster's son? Leo asked in confusion, as he just couldn't understand how a serious warrior like Darnell could have such an innocent son. However, Su Yong replied to him seriously, without realizing the sarcasm behind his question. Yup, everyone on Geneva's roster is a superstar. Every last one of them is from a big clan with serious backing. You don't get into Geneva on talent alone. It's all politics and pedigree. Su Yong said, as Leo's frown deepened. If I somehow have the misfortune of facing this kid in battle, what do I do then? Do I eliminate this kid and screw Rodova? Or do I beat his ass and risk alienating the black serpents from ever accepting me? Leo wondered, as he did not like the fact that he could potentially face this jumping clown in battle someday. Well, let's worry about that bridge when we have to cross it. No point thinking about it now, he quickly realized, as after wasting a few seconds thinking of an unlikely what-if scenario, Leo shifted his focus to the next platform shift and the fighters lining up from Clarence Academy. Leo wasn't the only one unsettled by the revelation that the Black Serpent Guildmaster's son was participating in the circuits, as sitting just a row above him, Nianfei felt a similar unease settle in her chest. The elders warned that something major was about to unfold during the circuits. Could it be tied to the Black Serpent Guildmaster's son? She wondered, her gaze narrowing. It couldn't be mere coincidence that the Cult of Ascension had chosen this particular edition of the tournament to make their move. And if they were planning something, she had a strong suspicion the Black Serpent heir was involved somehow. After all, Dupraval Nuna was currently public enemy number 1 within the cult, following his brutal execution of the previous dragon, Noah. The Cult of Ascension never moved without purpose. They were not anarchists. They were planners, architects of long-term devastation, who sowed seeds in silence and waited patiently for them to bloom into chaos. Which is why their presence here, now, made Nianfei's chest tighten with a creeping dread. Is Darnell their play? She thought, pupils narrowing. Is taking him their big plan? The theory settled in her mind like a stone. It made too much sense. Dupraval was too powerful for the cult to challenge on their own. But his son, right now, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of witnesses, on neutral ground, with rules and restrictions preventing interference. It was the perfect place for a strike. They wouldn't need to kill him. Just take him, use him as leverage, and force the Guildmaster's hand to give back the cult's scroll. Her heartbeat grew louder in her ears. Because the kidnapping plan wasn't what scared her most. What terrified her was what came after. If an incident broke out mid-tournament, or if Darnell went missing suddenly, then everyone, guests, sponsors, even students, would be put under intense scrutiny. And that meant, Leo. If they trace anything back to his true background, if even one piece of it leaks. She didn't finish the thought. Couldn't. Because Leo Skyshard might not survive the fallout. They'll label him a threat. A sleeper agent of the cult. Or an infiltrator. Which would mean the elder was right. She would have to act. She would have to step in and save him. Even if it meant revealing her own hidden cards far earlier than planned. Commander Jackson's office, midday, inside a confidential military HQ. The scent of cigar smoke curled through the room in lazy spirals, mixing with the distant echo of cheering fans from the giant screen mounted on the wall. The Sky God Arena's live broadcast played quietly, showing highlights from the latest Interstellar Circuits match. As Commander Jackson sat reclined behind his desk, one leg crossed over the other with a tumbler of aged whiskey half finished beside him. He puffed slowly, savoring the cigar's taste, when a soft ding interrupted his moment of peace. The holographic monitor embedded in his desk lit up, projecting a confidential report in bold red lettering across the glass. Subject: Leo Skyshard, Financial History Audit requested, high priority. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Ah, finally. Let's see which faction within the Mew clan is backing the boy, he muttered, tapping the screen to open the report. At first, he scanned the first few lines of the report quickly, but then after a few seconds, he frowned, as he put the cigar aside and sat up. What? He tapped the screen again, enlarging the credit history section, as his brow furrowed deeper with each passing second. The only reason he had requested an audit on the boy's financial history was because, usually when the Mew clan sent their spawns out into the universe without memories, they loaded their bank accounts with a lot of zeros. It was supposed to be a challenge for them to find their bank account without their memories, and when they did, they were rewarded with outrageous sums like 200-500,000 megapixels. And while Leo's account was the same, with an outrageous balance of 920,000 megapixels to his name, the originator of that transaction wasn't the Mu clan, but rather the Universal Department of Interstellar Immigration and Transport. What? Jackson muttered again, as this made no sense to him. The Department of Transport only paid out money to either its employees or passengers who had worked labor jobs during their journey across the universe aboard the department's ships, and even if Leo did either, it was impossible to earn $920,000 in a single payment. People worked their entire lives for that kind of money, so it couldn't be that he just earned it either. I wanted to see which faction in the Mu clan is backing him, by auditing his financial history. But this is not what I expected, Jackson said, taking another puff from his cigar as he couldn't make heads or tails of this situation. His eyes kept hovering over the line. Origin of funds, Universal Government, Department of Interstellar Immigration and Transport. As he couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. Tanya, honey, he said, reaching out to the comma button on his desk. Find out who in the Department of Interstellar Immigration and Transport had authorized a 920,000 megapixels transaction to a man named Leo Skyshard. I don't care how buried the logs are, pull the chain of command. I want names. I want timestamps. And if there's a Mu clan rat hiding in that department, I want them fired before sunset. He instructed, as, yes, Commander, came a sweet feminine reply from the other end. Good, Jackson said, leaning back again, as his gaze darkened. Has the universal government agencies been infiltrated by loyalists of the 6 big clans? Jackson wondered, as he couldn't help but fear the 6 great clans implanting spies within every agency of the government. I'll definitely have to get to the bottom of this, he concluded, as he did not enjoy the idea of there being great clan loyalists within the government at all. Meanwhile, inside a tavern on a distant planet, a hooded man sat hunched at a bar table, his shoulders slumped and fingers trembling faintly, less from cold and more from the slow decay of hunger and exhaustion that had hollowed him out over the past few weeks. One beer, and some bread, please, he rasped, voice raw like gravel dragged across metal. The bartender, a large orc with kind eyes and a soft heart, gave him a long look before nodding. A few moments later, he returned with a foaming mug and 2 thick slices of warm, buttered bread, that were double the usual portion. You look like you'll faint any minute from hunger, friend, the orc said gently. Eat up. Take your time and let me know if you need more. No shame in asking, the orc offered kindly, as the man gave a silent nod before picking up a slice with unsteady hands. Nom. The first bite was small, cautious. But the moment the warm bread hit his tongue, a quiet sound involuntarily left his mouth that sounded something between a sigh and a sob. Ah, he whispered in relief, as at that point the limited restraint that he seemed to have tethered onto seemed to vanish. He tore through the meal in seconds, devouring the bread and draining the mug with a desperation that made it clear he hadn't had a real meal in days. Maybe even weeks. And as he wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve, leaving some money on the counter to pay the orc, the kind bartender leaned in with an offer. If you need a room, or more food, I've got both. Free of charge, if you help me chop some wood out back with that sword you're carrying. The orc offered, but the man only shook his head in response, offering a weak smile in return. I can't stay now. But, thank you for the offer, he said as he turned to leave. However, as he moved toward the door, his eyes caught something familiar playing on the bar's old television screen. It was the Sky God Arena broadcast, replays from earlier in the day. And the camera had zoomed in on a young man standing on the battlefield, his black hair tousled, daggers in hand, eyes cold and focused as the crowd screamed his name. The hooded figure's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the screen. At first, he took a step forward. Then another. Leo. The name slipped out before he could stop it, barely a whisper. His legs moved on their own as he approached the screen, heart pounding. The man on the broadcast, cutting through opponent after opponent with terrifying grace and calm precision, was Leo. His brother. His little brother. Alive. Fighting. Thriving. His fingers reached out slowly, brushing against the edge of the screen like it might dissolve if he blinked. His touch lingered on Leo's face, glowing faintly in the flicker of the transmission, as emotion surged in his chest. Grief, relief, guilt, pride, all tangled together like a knot that had waited months to unravel. He hadn't seen that face in so long. And now, there it was, being broadcast across the stars for the entire universe to witness. However, just as he began to savor the moment. "Are you okay?" The orc bartender's voice came from behind, snapping him back to the present. The man blinked. The screen remained. Leo's next opponent was already falling. But the moment was over, as he turned away while pulling his hood a little lower. "I'm fine," he replied, voice hollow once again, as without another word, he walked out of the tavern, not bothering to look back even once. He couldn't afford to stay. He was a wanted man with bounties and bloodhounds at his back, which made staying in one place for too long akin to willingly placing himself in chains. But even as he stepped into the cold dusk air, even as he vanished down the alley with shadows clinging to his heels, a small smile crept onto his face for the first time in many weeks. Leo was alive and thriving. And somehow, that knowledge alone made the road ahead seem a little less lonely for Luke, because deep down, he felt assured that Leo would come looking for him and the others in the family soon. Commander Jackson wasn't the only one digging into Leo's background. As after his stellar performance against Button Academy, many others had begun snooping into his past as well. The first issue with Leo's alias lay in his surname, Skyshard, and how it wasn't named Su, Mew, Gu, Lu, Du, or Yu, meaning he wasn't publicly tied to any of the 6 great clans. And while some speculated that he might be a Mew clan offspring, cast into the universe without the family name like many of their young often were, others were eager to bet on the off chance that he wasn't tied to the Mew clan at all. Especially since not everyone knew about his memory loss or the circumstances leading to his Rodova admission. As those who had only just discovered him through the circuits had no clue he was still piecing his past together, so they leaned toward the belief that he was a rising star from some obscure and forgotten bloodline. But the second, more alarming issue, was his monstrous talent. A first-year Grandmaster, with blinding speed and ruthless efficiency, Leo's capabilities already eclipsed most young geniuses from even the top clans. And for someone that exceptional to appear without a dominant background, it made many wolves salivate. Monarch-level bloodlines were vanishingly rare. Outside the 6 great clans, the odds of such potential emerging from common blood were 1 in a trillion, if not worse. Which was why, across the galaxy, mid-sized clan patriarchs suddenly found themselves watching closely. They saw in Leo a mystery worth solving, and perhaps, a treasure worth claiming. Desperate to elevate their family's lineage, many began quietly dispatching agents to investigate his origins, hoping to uncover anything, any detail at all, that would justify an approach. As even the flimsiest thread of connection would do. Because in their world, the line between obscurity and legacy could be drawn with a marriage contract, and a well-timed introduction. Sky God Arena, Private Viewing Chamber, Alcazar Clan Rental Suite. The Alcazar clan was one of those mid-tier clans who had a couple transcendent tier warriors within their fold and some minor success in the economic sector. However, they couldn't quite break through to the realm of being a powerhouse. They controlled a few cities on a planet and were quite famous where they lived. However, on a universal scale their influence meant nothing much. However, today, the patriarch of the clan saw through Leo an opportunity to elevate the clan out of its mediocrity, and he hatched a plan to act on it, on the spot. Standing inside a luxurious private box overlooking the central battlefield, with his hands folded behind his back, Lord Alcazar gazed towards his youngest and most beautiful daughter, who was the apple of her eye up till yesterday. "He's perfect," Damien Alcazar muttered. "Speed, presence, bloodline, maybe even a monarch talent lineage, because if he's not at least that talented he would never make it to the Rodova team as a first-year Grandmaster." Alcazar theorized, as behind him, Serena Alcazar stood stiffly, draped in a lavender silk gown, her lips trembling slightly. "After the round of 16 ends tomorrow. The day after that is a rest day for all fighters. On that day they're supposed to participate in mandatory interviews and meet and greets, and that's our chance to make an impression, Damien began, as he turned and looked directly into the eyes of his favorite daughter. 100,000 megapixels. That's what I just paid for this access pass, that guarantees personal entry to Rodova's VIP meet and greet event. Damien said, flashing a pass in his hands, as Serena looked down at it with a sinking feeling in her chest. I've arranged your dress fitting tonight. And I've already contacted a Genovese stylist to fly in tomorrow morning. And pay her whatever it takes to get the fitting done in a few hours. Father, Serena intervened, struggling to find her voice as she whispered. I'm not sure I can do this. You must, Damien snapped back, gripping her shoulders, as the maniacal look in his eyes intensified. This isn't about you. This is about the clan. He gestured toward the screen in the VIP box where Leo's highlights were playing from earlier in the day. If he's from one of the great clans. Wonderful. We bind ourselves to them by marriage. We elevate in status and influence. He leaned in, eyes narrowing. And if he isn't, even better. Then we manipulate him. Use him. Breed a generation of talented skyshards under our banner and enrich our bloodline forever. Serena's breath hitched. I know you're a virgin. I know this is unpleasant. But that is the burden of those born into noble blood. You don't get to choose who you love, Serena. You only get to serve the legacy. Serena's eyes welled with tears, listening to her father, but she didn't let them fall. She couldn't. As for a moment Damien's tone softened, but only slightly. Wear something bold, tight around the waist. Show him a little shoulder. Innocence with a hint of temptation. Men like that, warriors, they want sweetness until they taste blood. Serena closed her eyes. You can cry now, he said quietly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. But not in front of him. When you see Leo Skyshard, you smile. You shine. You give him a reason to remember you. She nodded through the tears. No protest. No defiance. Because failure was not an option. Not in the Alcazar household. Not in this cruel universe. She had been cherished by the clan all her life so far and now it was her turn to pay them back. Sky God Arena, upper bleachers, the Kola clan. No, 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 you don't understand, Papa. Screamed Lena Kola, stomping her foot as she turned red in the face. You have to buy me that pass. Across from her, Lord Kola, a plump man with graying sideburns and an oversized clan Kola crest stitched onto his tunic, clutched a trembling hand to his chest like he'd just been shot. 100,000 megapixels. For a single meet and greet token. He gasped. You want me to mortgage my left kidney for a 5-minute handshake? It's not just a handshake. Lena cried, throwing a plush cushion across the room. It's Leo Skyshard. Do you have any idea what that man does to me? Lena, you're 19, and I know what I want. That man is cool, mysterious, insanely fast, and he saved Rodova all on his own. I love him, Papa. Oh sweet stars above, Lord Kola muttered, rubbing his temples as his daughter began pacing furiously. I will literally never forgive you if you ruin my one chance to meet him. I'll run away. I'll join the Pepsi clan. I'll change my surname to Pepper. Don't you dare take that beautiful Kola name off your records. Lena collapsed dramatically onto a couch, burying her face in a sequin-stuffed pillow. Just let me meet him. I don't care if I cry, faint, or forget how to breathe, just let me try. Lord Kola stared at her for a long moment, the dramatic sniffles echoing louder than the arena crowd outside. Finally, with a groan of defeat, he yanked his datapad from his belt and tapped furiously. I'm going to regret this when your mother finds out, but fine, he said, shaking his head. You'll get your damn pass. Just don't tell her how much I paid. Lena shot upright, her teary eyes wide with disbelief. Wait, really? Stars help me, yes, he sighed. Ah. Lena shrieked in joy, launching herself into her father's arms with enough force to nearly knock him over. You're the best papa ever. Lord Kola patted her awkwardly on the back, groaning under the weight. Just don't faint on the boy. Or propose. or talk about marriage, or babies, or too late, she sang, twirling in the air as she danced around the room. I'm gonna marry Leo Skyshard and name our first son Kola Skyshard. Oh gods, Lord Kola muttered, reaching for his flask. What have I done? Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Next day, Sky God Arena, round of 16. Rodova's second match in the interstellar circuits had a different air about it. They weren't cocky. They weren't smiling. They weren't underestimating anyone. After the embarrassment they endured against Button Academy, no one, least of all Yu Shen, took anything for granted anymore. Which was why today's roster looked like a declaration of war. Yu Shen, Minerva, Su Yang, Leo, and Enzo, a last-minute addition slotted in as the backup fifth, but with no expectation of stepping into the arena unless something went catastrophically wrong. This was Rodova's true hand. Their real starting lineup. And the crowd could feel it. Well, if it isn't the fallen titans returning to the field, Derek chuckled, adjusting his headset as the camera zoomed in on the Rodova team walking toward the arena staging zone. Yesterday was rough for Rodova, Lee chimed in, his voice more grounded. They went down 0-4 to Button Academy before Leo Skyshard pulled off the most epic comeback in recent circuit's history. Yeah, Leo was a monster yesterday, Derek agreed. But let's not sugarcoat it, the rest of the team humiliated themselves, which is why you see none of those members in today's lineup. Button Academy was supposed to be a warm-up round for a team like Rodova, and yet they nearly lost it all. Well, based on today's lineup, Lee said, they're clearly not here to mess around anymore. Yu Shen, Su Yang, Minerva, all back on the board. And their opponents, Derek said, glancing at his notes. The Red Demon Academy. An all-demon roster. Big boys. Thick skin. Twice the muscle mass of your average human. Expect this match to be physical, Derek, Lee nodded. The Red Demons are known for their brute strength and aggressive fighting styles. But based on what the Red Demon Academy showed us in the previous rounds, they're much more than just plain brutes. The camera panned to the center of the field where Su Yang stepped up for the opening bout, facing off against a massive 8.5-foot-tall demon with horns curled like twin rams and a cleaver-like greatsword slung over his shoulder. It looks like Rodova brought their own monster to open against the Red Demons, Derek whistled. I mean, just look at Su Yang. Those massive arms. That towering posture. Those unyielding golden eyes. I'd say he looks half a demon himself. Because if it was anyone else apart from him staring against a demon, they would look tiny in comparison. Pillar Wall Arena, Su Yang's first match. The arena for today's fight was the simpler Pillar Wall Arena, which had simple stone columns protruding out of the arena surface at various intervals. It wasn't one of the tricky arenas where surroundings changed a lot, but you still couldn't charge in a straight line for too long. Once both fighters took their starting spots, the referee raised his hand to signal the start. Begin, the referee said, dropping his hand, as the demon swordsman roared and charged, lifting his cleaver high. The ground cracked under each of his strides as he bore down on Su Yang with all the fury of a wrecking ball. But Su Yang didn't even flinch. He stood his ground, expression blank, sword resting against his shoulder like it weighed nothing. Clang! Asterisk. The first clash of weapons sent a shockwave rippling through the arena. However, instead of being pushed down or back, like many expected him to, when engaging in a contest of strength against a demon, Su Yang effortlessly deflected his opponent's cleaver, as he sent the demon backflipping not once, but twice, before he rolled across the arena floor and crashed into a nearby stone pillar. Ooh! The crowd erupted as, what? Derek shouted over the roar. Did he just send a demon twice his size cartwheeling? He didn't just block that strike, Derek, he completely overpowered his opponent, countering his attack with more force than the demon came in with. That's not just strength, That's technique. Pure, honed, explosive technique. Lee added, as Derek hummed in agreement. After regaining his footing, the demon snarled and charged again, but Su-Yong moved like a ghost. He sidestepped a downward cleave and swept low, slashing the demon's knee with surgical precision. Before the demon could fall, Su-Yong grabbed him by the shoulder, spun, and launched him into the air like a ragdoll. As the demon tried to stabilize mid-air, Su-Yong was already there, leaping high, higher than seemed physically possible, and came crashing down with a sword strike that hit like a thunderbolt. Boom! The arena floor cracked beneath the demon's body as Su-Yong landed. The demon being knocked out cold, as he was rushed to the medical bay immediately. Rodova takes the first point. Derek declared as the crowd roared in approval, as this was the exact type of fighting they were here to see. Are you not entertained? Su-Yong said, spreading his arms wide, as being the crowd pleaser that he was, he made sure to hype up his supporters before his next fight. Second match, Su-Yong vs. Red Demon Academy's second fighter, an axe wielder. Another demon stepped forward, this one with a serrated axe and a brawler's stance. But it didn't matter. Su-Yong dissected him within a minute. Parries, feints, brutal precision. Every time the demon tried to initiate a combo, Su-Yong disrupted it mid-flow and punished the attempt with crushing sword strikes. Within 30 seconds, the demon's weapon was broken, and Su-Yong planted his foot against his chest, sending him flying across the arena and out of bounds. Point number 2 to Rodova. Su-Yong is absolutely dominating this match. Lee shouted, nearly out of breath. Who needs magic when you can fold demons like laundry? Derek added, laughing. Third match, fourth match, Minerva. After his second win, Su-Yong raised his hand for substitution, tagging in Minerva without saying a word, as was the pre-made plan before the match began. Minerva stepped onto the field in silence, longbow strapped to her back, silver arrows glinting in her quiver, as the demon across from her snarled, brandishing twin whips charged with dark mana. Begin, the referee declared, as the demon dashed forward in zigzag motion, closing the distance fast, but Minerva didn't blink. Thwip. Asterisk. The first arrow nailed his shoulder mid-sprint. Rapid shot. Thwip. Asterisk. Thwip. Asterisk. The next two slammed into his thigh and hip, breaking his movement rhythm entirely. Thwip. Thwip. Dot. 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 Thwip. By the time he got within 10 feet, Minerva had planted so many arrows into his body that the poor demon collapsed under his own weight, unable to stand. As the referee blew the whistle to signal for the end of the fight. Rodova takes point 3. The referee declared, as the crowd cheered, this time with more awe than excitement. Minerva's accuracy is just cruel, Lee whispered. She doesn't just shoot to wound, she disables key muscle groups. It's like watching a doctor dissect someone mid-combat. Can her next opponent give her more of a challenge? Derek wondered, as the fourth red demon stepped up. The fourth demon fighter was a shield warrior, the perfect counter for an archer. However, since he was just a master-level warrior, the difference between the two remained too large for him to overcome. He tried to charge at Minerva as soon as the match began, however, Minerva just responded by firing high into the sky. Then suddenly shooting low, as the charging demon became confused on what was going on. After that, Minerva suddenly shot an arrow behind him, as the shot ricocheted off a pillar and struck him in the back, before the one that she shot in the sky hit him on top of the head, ending the fight instantly. Winner, Rodova. The referee declared as the crowd lost it. This was the most badass way to finish an opponent, and they loved it, as Minerva simply turned and flicked her hair before walking back towards the contestant area, as she tagged Yushen in. Fifth match, Yushen enters. The crowd buzzed as the Rodova captain walked into the arena. It's him, Derek screamed. The Rodova captain is finally here. Yushen enters the field. Lee echoed, voice booming. And judging by the roar from the stands, the crowd's been eagerly waiting for this moment. Li said, as the excitement in the air seemed to automatically triple when Yu Shen walked into the field, as the cheers he received were unlike anything any other Rodova fighter got before him. Wielding twin swords coated in shimmering frost, Yu Shen didn't waste any time once the match began, as he charged at his opponent with ruthless speed. The final demon opponent was a spellcaster, building up fire spells at rapid speed. But Yu Shen didn't let him breathe. Using elegant footwork and blinding speed, he appeared in front of the caster before the second fireball had even charged, and slashed through his protective spells like they were paper. With just 2 sweeping arcs of his blades, he froze the demon's arms at the joints, and shattered them with a final cross slash that ended the fight instantly. Match over. Rodova wins all 5 rounds, 5-0. The announcer declared, as the crowd exploded in applause and chants praising Yu Shen. Now that, Derek said, his voice breathless, is how you bounce back from a bad day. Rodova did not just win today, Li added. They sent a message to all the other academies watching, that don't mistake us as weak, that we are still the #1 seed. And they surely looked like it today. There were no wild celebrations inside the Rodova locker room after their round of 16 win. Everyone sat quietly, catching their breath as Yu Shen, Su Yang, and Minerva downed stamina recovery potions in silence. Until Yu Shen finally broke the quiet. Tomorrow's a rest day. The quarterfinals won't begin until the day after, but we still have obligations, fan meet and greets, press events, the whole circus. So listen up, rest your bodies. Don't go wandering off. Don't do anything that'll get us sanctioned or draw the wrong kind of attention. He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. Our next opponents are the Nature Academy. They've got 2 Grandmasters in their lineup now, which means this won't be an easy fight. If we get past them, chances are we'll face Clarence Academy the very next day. And they've got 3 Grandmasters this year, and frankly, they're looking better than they've ever looked before. And if, somehow, we make it to the finals, then we're going up against Geneva. A full Grandmaster roster. No weak links. No freebies. So I don't think I need to spell out just how hard that fight is going to be. He stood up, voice steady. Which means tomorrow may be the last true break you get in this tournament. So I advise you to use it wisely. Yu Shen said, as he gazed towards only Leo, Su Yang and Minerva, like the other members of the team, did not even matter to him. Yes, Captain, Minerva replied, while Leo and Su Yang nodded, as Yu Shen sat back down looking satisfied. However, while Leo sat carefree within the Rodova changing room, back at the Horizon Dominion head office on planet Stargate, things got real messy, real fast. Planet Stargate, Horizon Dominion head office. Ma'am, there's an urgent report regarding one of our rising talents, Leo Skyshard, the assistant said, his voice low and tense as he handed over a glowing data slate. They stood inside Horizon Dominion's head office on planet Stargate, surrounded by towering windows that overlooked the spire-heavy skyline. The atmosphere inside the office was all marble, silence, and money as Ladina Horizon, CEO and part owner of the Horizon Dominion Group, raised a perfectly shaped brow as she set her protein smoothie down and took a look at the slate. She skimmed the headline, and stilled. Subject: Leo Skyshard, flagged as a wanted criminal, planet Terra Nova. TCH, she exhaled, scrolling with a practiced flick. What now? The report was ludicrous. According to planet Terra Nova's local government, Leo Skyshard was being charged with 1. Unauthorized leaking of classified information. 2. Resisting arrest. 3. Double homicide of local enforcement agents. They were suing him for a grand sum of 250 million megapixels in the Universal Court. And most hilariously, their report mentioned how Leo had damaged government earning potential by influencing migrant workers to make smarter life choices. Amongst the poor, he was apparently hailed as a hero. However, amongst planet Terra Nova's corrupt elite, a nuisance who disrupted a predatory exploitation scheme. It's clearly a smear job, the assistant offered nervously. A local power move. Low-level nonsense, but the real problem is that it somehow made it into the Universal Government's official registry. Ladina leaned back in her chair, lips pursed, eyes cool. How did you find this so suddenly? She asked, as the assistant presented the anonymous email they received recently. We got an anonymous email today, which we have traced back to the lead investigating officer on Leo's case, who is blackmailing us for money to keep this hush-hush or threatening to release it to the press, the assistant said, as Ladina frowned. If he gives it to the universal media, they could try to spin this into a PR nightmare and accuse Horizon Dominion of hiring a known criminal. Try to drag our name through the mud during peak circuits coverage. How the fuck did this event bypass our background check system? Did no one check out the kid before offering him a contract? Ladina asked, turning towards her assistant, who quickly showed her another data slate. The background data given to us by the Rodova Military Academy came as clean. And since Rodova is such a reputed source, we trusted them to know this, the assistant replied, as Ladina let out a long sigh. Always double check, she said, pressing a finger to her forehead, as she contemplated on what to do next. How important is Leo Skyshard again? Is it fine if we throw him to the wolves? She asked coldly, as the assistant quickly tapped his slate, pulling up Leo's metrics. Extremely high ceiling, ma'am. He's projected to become one of the most marketable names in the circuits if he survives till finals. Viewer traction is already spiking. Ladina smiled faintly, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Then we protect the investment. She tapped her nails against the desk once, twice, then issued her decision. Bribe the local official on Terra Nova handling the investigation. Have them alter Leo's facial profile in the records, just enough that, despite the name match, facial recognition won't flag him. She stood and walked toward the massive glass wall, arms crossed behind her back. Meanwhile, grease someone inside the Universal Government's database division and have the entry wiped from the registry altogether. Use up to 1 million MP total. I want it done in 4 hours or less. The assistant bowed. Yes, ma'am. Understood. And if this ever comes back to bite us, we'll claim we ran a full background check, and nothing showed up. Clean hands, clean conscience. With that, she turned away from the skyline, already moving on to the next crisis. Leo's Skyshard is valuable, so until he's not, we protect him like he's royalty. The assistant nodded and left, leaving the queen to her empire. This was by no means an ideal situation for the Horizon Dominion group to be in, however, this was exactly how the business world worked. The most profitable investments always came with some caveat or the other, and you often had to handle things behind the scenes to keep the ugly truth buried. This would not only prove as a good business decision for the Horizon Dominion group if everything worked out as planned, but could also be used as leverage to renegotiate Leo Skyshard's contract in the future, by letting him know that he owed them one. After receiving his instructions, Ladina's assistant did not wait a single second before mobilizing the Horizon Group's fixers to take care of Ladina's instructions. The Horizon Dominion Group was a wealthy and powerful conglomerate with deep ties within the Universal Government. For them to go up against a small fry like some local government on an obscure planet was nothing much, as they expected to have this whole incident settled within mere hours. The Horizon Group's fixers were specialists, ghosts in the system, trained to scrub, rewrite, and reshape official data across thousands of worlds without leaving a trace. As by the time an hour passed, the Terra Nova official overseeing Leo's case had already re-evaluated his report, uploading a new facial profile that bore only a vague resemblance to the real Leo Skyshard. Meanwhile, a second fixer forwarded a silent bribe to a data registry clerk within the Universal Government, who, in exchange for a generous payout, purged Leo's criminal record from every tier of the interstellar database. Within 3 hours, it was done. No loose ends. No evidence. To the public, Leo Skyshard remained clean. Untouched. A prodigy untainted by scandal. And as Ladina reviewed the final confirmation on her tablet, she gave a slight nod and calmly returned to her protein drink, thinking that the crisis was already behind her. Sky God Arena, Rodova VIP Villa, morning of the rest day. The morning sun had barely risen over the grand lotus-shaped spires of the Sky God Arena when a line of black hover cars began parking outside Team Rodova's private villa. Each vehicle gleamed with the logos of major sponsors, Horizon Dominion, Emerald Arms Consortium, Crimson Phoenix, and more, spilling out teams of stylists, PR reps, branding advisors, and media consultants. Their movements were crisp, professional, and entirely without mercy for the sleepy fighters within, as they stormed the villa without any regard for the team's privacy. Inside the villa, silence lingered. Until it didn't. Bang! The door to Leo's room swung open without warning as a flurry of Horizon Dominion stylists and handlers barged in. Leo was asleep in bed when they entered, however, he was up and alert within a split second, looking like he was ready for war. Thankfully, it wasn't enemies that had ambushed him, as after looking at the Horizon Dominion logos on the chest of people entering his room, he simply looked up once and nodded. "Good. You're up. That makes things easier," said one of the lead stylists, snapping her fingers as two others moved in behind her with kits in hand. "Take this, Mr. Skyshard," another added, handing Leo a small pill and a glowing vial. "It's a rapid skin detox combo. You'll sweat a lot, for about 10 minutes, but it will cleanse every pore in your body and you will be left with a clear, glowing skin." Leo took them both without a word, swallowed them dry, and closed his eyes. A minute later, the effects hit. Sweat began pouring from his body like a waterfall. His shirt clung to him, drenched within seconds, as every pore opened up and heat radiated from his core. 10 minutes passed in silence, the room filled only with the sounds of his slow, steady breathing and the quiet notes of the stylists reviewing his schedule, but once the 10 minutes were over. "Shower. Warm water only. 5 minutes max," a voice instructed from the doorway, handing him a bathrobe as Leo nodded and walked into the bathroom. By the time he emerged, towel wrapped around his waist, steam trailing behind him, his skin had taken on a clean, polished glow, hair damp and slicked back slightly from the heat. As the stylists wasted no time, one began blow-drying his hair into the approved shape for the day's events. Another rubbed a light serum into his jawline, enhancing the sharpness of his features, while the third held up several outfit options, each tailored precisely to Leo's physique: dark, elegant, and broadcast-friendly. Meanwhile, the media consultants moved in with their data pads. "The media today may ask you about the brutality with which you fight," one began. "You need to come off as measured. Not cocky. Try something like, 'The stakes are high. I don't hold back, because I can't afford to.'" "Another likely question," added the second consultant, "is about your presence on the main roster as a first year. Especially your dynamic with Su Yang. Our goal for this question is to project a humble, brotherly image of you. So it's recommended you reply with something like, 'I'm just trying to help the team as best as I can, and Su Yang's like a brother to me.'" If they ask about the Button Academy comeback, the first consultant added, "Say something like, 'It looked tough, but I had faith in my fighting skills. I just focused on the next opponent. One at a time. Kept myself grounded and focused till the end.'" The consultants bombarded him with PR training, to which Leo replied nothing. He just nodded patiently after each note being read to him, as he knew that there was no point behind telling these corporate clowns that he wasn't going to follow their script, so he just pretended to be cooperative. He had never attended a media or fan event before today, nor had he seen one play over the television, so he had no idea about what to expect from it. However, if there was one thing that he was certain of, it was the fact that he wasn't going to pretend to be something he was actually not, just because there was a camera on him. Whatever the event turned out to be, he'd face it the only way he knew how, which was by showing up as his genuine self. 20 minutes before the event was scheduled to begin, Leo and every other sponsored fighter on the team looked dressed and ready for the ordeal, as Leo felt quite surprised on how good some of these guys looked. Compared to their usual fighting gear, the aura of the team members changed drastically when they wore formal suits and custom accessories, as Yu Shen and Su Yang in particular looked like male supermodels. What do you think, Skyshard? Think'll meet my future wife at this event today? Su Yang asked, as Leo scoffed and began to fake cough. With that muscular body of yours, the only fangirls chasing you are going to be orcs, Yang. So unless you plan to take in an orc wife, don't get your hopes too high, Leo replied as Su Yang snorted in disbelief. Don't forget the demon kind. I think those dig Su Yang too. Minerva added from the background, as Su Yang turned and raised his arms in protest. I'm popular amongst human girls too, you guys are just too jealous to admit it, he said, as Leo just shook his head in disbelief. This was the exact kind of pointless banter that made him feel like his time was better utilized training or doing combat drills. However, the contents of his contract with Horizon were clear. Attending media events was a must. Soon, the Rodova team arrived at the event venue in a sleek private bus, its sides adorned with the Academy's crest. As the doors hissed open, the first thing they saw was Principal Ulrich standing just outside the barricades, waiting with his usual flamboyance. He looked freshly arrived himself, his coat still buttoned from the shuttle ride, his silver hair untouched by the wind. Yu Shen, my boy. He called out, stepping forward with open arms, as Yu Shen, who was first to disembark from the shuttle, eagerly embraced the principal, with a few minor photographers excitedly snapping shots of the two embracing for the cameras. Meanwhile, the rest of the team began disembarking behind him, each adjusting their jackets or brushing off lint as the flashes continued to spark around them. And then, Skyshard, my boyyy. Ulrich suddenly bellowed with exaggerated warmth, his voice drawing curious looks from reporters and fans alike. As Leo paused for the slightest second, feeling unsure about why Ulrich was summoning him with such theatrical energy, before deciding to finally play along. Principal, Leo said curtly before stepping forward, as Ulrich immediately swept him into a half embrace, his grip surprisingly firm. Smile for the cameras, he whispered quickly into Leo's ear, his tone low and businesslike. As Leo obeyed, slipping on a faint, controlled smile just as the shutters clicked around them. They separated a moment later, with Ulrich gripping Leo's hand in a firm handshake, as he squeezed just hard enough to make a point before moving on to greet the others. He gave Minerva a nod, clapped Su Yang on the shoulder, and even gave Enzo a brief handshake. Before finally throwing his arms around Professors David and Hen, as he pulled both men close for a hearty laugh. Ha ha ha. The sound filled the air, as Leo blinked in confusion. For a moment, it was hard for him to believe what he was seeing. Principal Ulrich and Professor David standing side by side, laughing like old friends despite their well-known differences. But apparently, this was what media attention did to people. Whatever disputes they had behind closed doors did not exist here. As in front of the cameras, the Rodova faculty presented a united front, acting as a one big, happy family, for the rest of the universe to see. Sky God Arena, red carpet entrance. Leo did not expect to see a long red carpet leading into the actual event hall once he stepped inside the main building. Apparently, the media waiting outside were the small fry, because the real frenzy began here. Dozens of flashing lights exploded all at once as the Rodova team entered the hallway, flanked by golden pillars and a wide ceremonial carpet that stretched nearly 50 meters. Holographic banners hovered overhead, displaying the logos of the top academies participating in today's event, and the universal government. Sir, Leo Skyshard, please smile for us. Su Yang, could you flex your biceps for the fans? Just one pose, please. Minerva, gorgeous, absolutely stunning. Can we get a shot with your thigh slit and a dreamy look? The crowd of photographers, digital streamers, and independent reporters didn't even attempt to maintain decorum when the Rodova team entered, as they yelled, begged, barked, and praised, their voices clashing into a chaotic wave of desperation. The Rodova team advanced painfully slowly along the carpet, as Yu Shen was repeatedly pulled away by some fan or reporter for an autograph. However, while he, Su Yang and Minerva played nice, Leo continued to remain silent and unbothered. No matter how much the reporters around him begged, no matter how hard some of his fans yelled for an autograph, Leo just prodded along unbothered, as if he had suddenly turned deaf. Leo. Just a smile. Leo Skyshard. Is it true that you follow a vegetarian diet? Skyshard. What's your secret training method? Are you single? The press yelled, however Leo ignored all of them. Unfazed, unflinching, eyes forward, until a firm push came from the side, pushing him towards one of the biggest media houses in the room. Go, Ulrich whispered beside him, shoving him lightly in the direction of a polished reporter in a silver dress, holding a mic with the Universal Government insignia. Her eyes lit up the moment Leo stepped forward, as she couldn't believe that she snagged the popular Leo Skyshard for her exclusive. Mr. Skyshard, so glad to finally meet you. Just a few questions, if you don't mind, she began, as Leo turned slightly, his expression unreadable, as the cameras swiveled to focus entirely on him. Leo looked around to see if he could somehow bail out of this one, however, all of his team members seemed to be involved in an interview of their own, as Leo sighed and submitted to his fate. Sure, go ahead, he replied dryly, as he stared into the eyes of the reporter with his usual cold gaze. Mr. Skyshard, as you must be aware, you've become quite the universal sensation after your stunning performance against Button Academy, the reporter beamed, mic in hand, her posture picture perfect. How does it feel to gain such popularity so quickly, and have thousands of fan pages pop up to support you across the Galaxy Net? Leo blinked once. I'm not on Galaxy Net. Nor do I care about any fan pages. Cough. Asterisk. Cough. Asterisk. The reporter let out a tense laugh, clearly caught off guard by the blunt response. Haha, so cold, she said, flashing a forced smile toward the camera as she frantically tapped her data slate, skipping to the next question. Well then, let's try this, making it to the starting lineup of a prestigious team like Rodova as a first-year student, that must be a proud moment. You and your parents must be thrilled. Was this always your dream growing up? She asked, as Leo's expression didn't change at all. He only gave a slight shrug to the camera before saying, who doesn't dream of becoming strong? My goal was always to grow stronger, for myself. I never aimed to join any team. But while chasing that goal, I ended up becoming strong enough to earn a spot on Rodova's roster, so I took it. But would I have lost sleep if I hadn't made it? He paused for a beat. Nah. The reporter's professional smile faltered ever so slightly, a thin crack appearing beneath the pressure of Leo's deadpan responses. She tapped a few notes into her slate, already realizing this wasn't going to be the warm, promotional soundbite her producers were hoping for. Still, she pressed on, her voice just a touch tighter, though still composed. Well then, she said with a strained chuckle. Let's talk about something a little lighter. She cleared her throat, eyes flicking to the next question. Su Yong publicly posted on the Galaxy Net following your comeback victory a few days ago, calling you a brother to him, and congratulating you for a stellar performance. The post's already viral, with millions of shares. She turned to the camera with a polished smile. So tell our audience, what kind of dynamic do the two of you share? This was supposed to be a feel-good question, one where Leo replied that Su Yong was his best friend and that the bond they shared was like actual siblings. However, Leo did not reply with what he had been trained for, as instead he spoke his truth. He's annoying at times, he said flatly as the reporter's smile froze. But I acknowledge him as a warrior, Leo continued, voice steady. He's got grit, perseverance, and he can eat 100 Su rands for breakfast. There was a slight pause before he added, his speed needs work. Hopefully he trains that more in the future. The reporter blinked, unsure whether to laugh or wince. And as far as him being my brother, well, I wouldn't call him that. But he's for sure my only friend in Rodova. The camera lingered on Leo's face, as he looked calm, unreadable, yet somehow unshakably sincere. And as awkward silence threatened to settle, the reporter quickly forced a laugh, her practiced smile sliding back into place. Well, you heard it here first, folks, she said, shifting on her heels. Rodova's team chemistry seems as raw as their combat strength. She gestured toward the camera with a flourish. We'll be back with more coverage from the red carpet in just a moment, don't go anywhere. The moment the camera blinked off, the reporter let out a long, quiet exhale, muttering to herself in distress as Leo already began walking away. Stars help me, I'm never interviewing that man again, she whispered under her breath, as she thought of a dozen silent curses while staring at Leo's back. Meanwhile, unlike Leo, Su Yong, Minerva, and Yu Shen handled the media frenzy like seasoned professionals. Su Yong was practically glowing under the spotlight, flashing his trademark grin as he flexed when requested, striking poses with dramatic flair that sent some of the younger reporters squealing with delight. Yes, Leo's comeback against Button was amazing, he said, winking at a hollow cam. Leo did all the heavy lifting. I'm just lucky to call the guy my teammate, and maybe his better-looking twin. He laughed at his own joke and then gave the camera a confident thumbs up, completely at ease. Minerva, meanwhile, fielded questions coming her way with grace, offering measured answers about team strategy, her training routine, and how proud she was to be part of such a talented group. When asked about Leo, she smiled softly and said, "He's a mystery, but one I'm grateful to fight beside." She let the reporters draw their own conclusions from that and moved on like a practiced diplomat. Yu Shen was the last to pass through the media gauntlet, exuding quiet authority in his sharp suit. His responses were calm, articulate, and impossible to pick apart. He praised Su Yang's growth, Minerva's work ethic, and even gave Leo a nod of approval when asked about him. He doesn't speak much, Yu Shen said. But Leo's one of the best first years I've seen. Probably the most talented of us all. I trust him a lot. And for now that's all that matters. It was the perfect quote, firm, loyal, and PR approved. And just like that, the Rodova trio danced through the flashing lights and recording drones with ease, projecting the image of a polished, united front. Smiling, laughing, praising each other, just as the universe expected them to. Meanwhile, Leo stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching them work the red carpet like it was a battlefield of its own. And in his own quiet way, he respected it. He wasn't built for this game. But they were. And right now, they were playing it flawlessly. Across the universe, GalaxyNet livestreamed commentary and social reactions. As the red carpet stream continued broadcasting across GalaxyNet, comment sections, fan forums, and reaction feeds lit up in real time, with hundreds of millions of viewers watching the Rodova team strut down the carpet. And when Leo Skyshard's interview aired, the universe net fractured. GalaxyNet stream, top comment section, sponsored by Crimson Pulse Media. At QTDemon_87. Greater than, did he seriously say he didn't care about his fans? What a jerk. Like, bro, we stand up for you and defend you on social media and you don't even feel thankful for us. At Peachy Phonix. Greater than, he's hot, don't get me wrong. But that attitude, nah, cold men are so out of fashion. My Su Yong would never. At Rodova Fanmom. Greater than, I hope the Horizon Dominion PR team drops him after this. He's not grateful at all. This kind of arrogance is dangerous for the brand. But just as the disapproval swelled, another wave of fans started carving a different path entirely. At War Criminal Life. Greater than, no smiles. No fake charm. Just brutal honesty and death in his eyes. Finally, a man worth simping for. At Emperor Vibes. Greater than, he said, nah, with his whole chest. This man doesn't care about fame, politics, or PR. He's just here to win. I respect that. At Skyshard Cult verified fan page. Greater than, others wear suits for the cameras. Leo wears it to hide the blood of his enemies splattered on his chest. We're witnessing the rise of a true killer. At Galaxythorns_Alpha. Greater than, he's the anti-hero we didn't know we needed. The kind of guy who doesn't show up to parties, but makes sure they end early. At Migflefmaforleo. Greater than, he called Su Ran food for Su Yong. I screamed. I ascended. Feed me more, king. Even professional analysts started weighing in. At Teller_Nova, sports psych analyst. Skyshard may have just tanked his marketability, or he may have pioneered a new wave of raw, brutal warrior branding. Only time will tell. At Darius Hex, esports commentator. This kid doesn't want fame. Doesn't want friends. Doesn't even want us. He wants victory. And that's why he terrifies the competition. And perhaps the most viral quote of the hour. A short clip of Leo's calm expression as he said, he's annoying. But I acknowledge him as a warrior. Followed by a fan's captioned remix. Bros before PR. As within the hour, memes flooded Galaxy Net. Leo's face imposed over a silent assassin walking away from an exploding media stage. A shirtless Su Yong with the caption, "He's my brother." And Leo under it saying, "No he's not. Back at the Horizon Dominion Group HQ, the PR team watched in panic, as Leo did not follow the script that they had prepared for him at all. "I'm going to get fired. My job, my career are gone," said the PR head responsible for Leo, as she sulked and buried her head in her hands. However, what she thought was a PR disaster, actually turned out to be an organic wave of promotions, as Leo was tagged and reshared 4x more than any other warrior walking the red carpet. "Why's our engagement rate spiking?" One analyst gasped. Another swiveled in his chair. "The negative sentiment is dropping. He's going viral in the underground forums. Dark fanbase engagement is up 400%. Wait, look at this. We're getting repeat shares across both light and dark channels," a third data analyst blurted out, his eyes wide as a fresh wave of metrics scrolled across his monitor. The Horizon Dominion PR lounge had gone from despair to disbelief to full-blown celebration. "Fanpage creation just doubled in 20 minutes, someone else added. Half of them are rebranding as Skyshard syndicates, is that a thing now?" "It is now," said a fourth, already taking screenshots for the next promotional brief, as the PR head who had buried her face in her hands slowly raised her head, blinking in confusion. We didn't just survive that." A nearby strategist smirked and cracked open a can of synth caffeine. "No, honey. We just struck gold. Meanwhile, back at the head office, the executive dashboard buzzed to life, and Ladina Horizon herself skimmed through the live updates from her penthouse suite on Stargate. She took one look at the skyrocketing metrics, the fan reactions, and the heat maps lighting up across 3 quadrants, before nodding once. "Let him keep being himself," she said softly. "Turns out the galaxy likes killers more than it likes saints. Change the PR campaign, project him as the cold man he shows himself to be, make the most of his persona and brand him appropriately." And just like that, Leo Skyshard, cold, silent, brutally honest, was no longer just a promising fighter. He had become a movement. A myth. A media storm wrapped in midnight steel. Within the VIP meet and greet lounge. After the press walk and the red carpet, came the common meet and greet area where fighters of all teams met with some of the common ticket fans and the top sponsors of the event. And it was here that Serena patiently waited for Leo, as although she had a VIP pass to the Rodova team lounge as a super fan, she couldn't go in there yet, as the Rodova team had not yet arrived. Serena found herself dressed in a navy blue gown today that hugged her figure with precision only noble tailoring could buy. The fabric was dark when no light was cast on it, yet it shimmered faintly under the overhead chandeliers, catching light at the curves and casting shadows at just the right angles to accentuate her natural beauty. Her long dark hair was styled into soft waves that cascaded down one shoulder, her makeup flawless, that highlighted her almond eyes and high cheekbones with just enough allure to turn heads, but not enough to seem desperate. But in case that wasn't enough, the family tailor added a bold slit in her dress that revealed a smooth line of leg that many of the young male fighters found impossible to ignore. And they didn't ignore her. Because, within minutes of arriving, Serena had been approached by no less than 7 different warriors, 2 of them high-seed circuit contenders, offering her everything from compliments to drinks to dinner reservations. However, since her instructions about who to fraternize with were clear, she simply smiled politely at them all, charming when needed, demure when it suited her, but never letting the conversations linger. Because her eyes kept flicking toward the entrance. Searching. Waiting. And though the praise and attention swirled around her, giving her a faint but undeniable boost in confidence, none of it mattered once he walked in. Leo Skyshard. The moment he stepped into the lounge, all noise fell away in her head. The pulse of the music, the chatter of voices, the clinking of glasses, it all blurred as her heart skipped a beat. He was dressed in that sharp, jet black suit tailored by Horizon Dominion, the collar high, the sleeves tight around his arms, his eyes cold and unreadable as always. He looked like a soldier at a gala, a killer in formal wear. And suddenly, despite her hours of preparation, the practiced lines she'd repeated in her head, and the elegance she'd wrapped herself in like armor, Serena felt nervous. Because now, it was showtime. Within the VIP meet and greet lounge, moments later. Serena inhaled slowly, trying to steady her nerves. Just go up to him. Smile. Introduce yourself. You've practiced this, she thought to herself, but before she could take a single step, a loud, high-pitched voice shattered the ambiance. Oh my God, it's Sir Leoo. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Even the servers stopped mid-pour. As striding through the crowd like a meteor of chaos was a girl dressed in a sparkling red ensemble, glitter clinging to her every step. It was the infamous Lena Cola, brash, bubbly, and impossible to ignore. As looking at her dashed towards Leo, Serena narrowed her eyes instantly. Oh stars, not her. Lena practically bounced in front of Leo, eyes wide and sparkling. Sir Leo, I'm your biggest fan. Can I please have your autograph? She handed him a marker with the kind of gleam in her eyes that screamed trouble, and without a hint of hesitation, tugged the top of her dress down slightly, pushing her chest forward. Right here, over my heart, she added sweetly. Make it special. A scandalous hush fell across the nearby area. As watching the scene unfold, Serena's jaw tightened. Shameless. Absolutely shameless, she thought, but before her frustration could boil over, Leo's response stunned her. He didn't even blink. Instead, he calmly reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a pocket square, slightly crumpling his otherwise flawless look, and signed it in neat, fluid strokes. You're too young, kid. Don't let strange men sign your chest or you'll never find a good husband. Leo said flatly, as he handed the pocket square over smoothly. Lena blinked in stunned silence, the square trembling in her hands. But rather than retreat in embarrassment, she leaned in closer, voice dropping to a husky whisper. If I find no one else, will you marry me then, Sir Leo? I promise I'll be a good girl, do everything you ask, satisfy you in every way you can imagine. Leo's eyebrow lifted, but only slightly. No, I'd rather die single than marry you, he replied before brushing past her, as he removed himself from this awkward conversation. Lena, heart-struck and swaying, leaned onto a nearby counter for support, sighing dreamily despite the rebuke. So handsome, so cold, hoo. As Serena, who had been watching from just a few feet away, felt her pulse spike. Her fists clenched at her sides, as the words, slut, shameless witch, and chest-thrusting trash bag, all floated through her mind in rapid succession. But as her gaze turned back to Leo, her fury dulled into something else. Admiration. He could have played along. Most warriors in this hall today would have. But he didn't even flinch. There was something about the way he handled the moment, calm, detached, completely in control, that made her heart flutter for reasons she wasn't ready to admit. Maybe, just maybe, he's not as bad of a man to marry. Maybe sharing a life with him wouldn't be unbearable, she thought, as although the concept startled her, she somehow did not find it disturbing enough to chase it away from her head. All right, you can do this, she said to herself, as gathering her courage again, Serena adjusted her dress, lifted her chin, and began walking toward Leo. Only to freeze again mid-step, hesitating as doubt crept in. What if he brushes me off the same way? What if he thinks I'm just another girl throwing herself at him? Her breath caught in her throat. And just like that, her courage flickered. Leo's cold nature, while an admirable quality in a husband, was a challenge to overcome as a suitor, which made her current situation difficult, as she had to come up with an entirely new plan to approach on the fly. One that would not make her seem like other desperate girls. After the first awkward approach from Lena, Leo quickly found a quiet corner to hide in, away from the cameras, the small talk, and the waves of overzealous admirers. He stood there alone, half shadowed by a decorative pillar, holding a vial of refreshment potion in one hand, as his eyes scanned the room in detached boredom. He wasn't sipping the drink so much as using it as an excuse to avoid conversation. And it was here that Serena approached him. Not loudly, not boldly, just cleverly. She walked up beside him without fanfare, maintaining just enough distance to not seem intrusive. She faced forward, not at him, and said nothing. Then, she too reached for a vial of refreshment potion, as for a moment, the two simply stood there in silence, quietly sipping their potions under the ambient glow of the chandelier. Then she finally spoke, her tone casual and soft. "Social events are not your thing either." To which Leo replied with a, "Nope," without so much as even looking at her. "Mine neither," she said, taking a small sip. "I've already been asked out by 10 different warriors in here. But frankly," she glanced sideways, just for a moment. "I'd kill myself before going out with any of them." Leo gave a faint exhale, not quite a laugh, but the ghost of one, as his lips curled into the faintest wry smile. Serena turned toward him more fully this time and extended her hand with practiced elegance. "I'm Serena, by the way." Leo looked at her hand for a second, as if debating whether this was another trap, but then shook it. "Leo. Oh, I already know who you are," she replied, flashing him a sly grin as she pulled a sleek pass card from her clutch and showed it discreetly. The Rodova Team Lounge super fan badge gleamed in her hand as she leaned in just slightly and whispered, "I'm a super fan." Leo raised a brow at this sudden revelation, seemingly not expecting it. However, he did not recoil back or pull away from this conversation, like he would have if she approached him directly. Because for once, someone had managed to approach him without making him feel uncomfortable. And he didn't hate it. Glancing sideways, Leo took a proper look at the woman standing beside him now and found her to be truly gorgeous. Her skin was smooth and fair, her legs effortlessly elegant beneath the navy slit of her dress. Her chest, full and perfectly framed, drew attention whether she intended to or not. And her face, delicate jawline, almond eyes, lips touched with just the right shade of red, was exactly the type Leo would have found beautiful in another life. If he were the dating type, then this would be the kind of woman he'd pay attention to. Poised, composed, stunning. But dating had no place in his life. Not now. Not when every breath he took was in service to sharpening his blade, strengthening his body, and chasing a version of himself that was still out of reach. So, although the woman beside him was undoubtedly beautiful, perhaps even perfect, he didn't feel his heart flutter in the slightest. Not a twitch of desire. Not a flicker of temptation. Only the cold, steady silence of a man who had chosen purpose over pleasure. And yet, he didn't walk away. Which, for Leo, said enough. Within the VIP meet and greet lounge. Half an hour later, the fanfare had finally begun to settle within the VIP meet and greet lounge. The wildest fans had already gotten their autographs, taken their pictures, and left in giggling fits, as the more composed and private guests now had a chance to approach their favorite fighters without being swallowed by the madness. The chaos of the red carpet was long over, as the once frantic air inside the hall had mellowed into soft music, distant chatter, and the clinking of polished glasses. Sponsors, nobles, and VIP guests circulated through the decorated halls, mingling with warriors and exchanging words with practiced grace. And yet, amidst the calm, one figure burst through the fan entrance with urgency in every step. He moved like a man whose soul had caught fire, eyes scanning every inch of the elegant space with trembling desperation. He was late, painfully late, and every second of delay weighed on him like a lifetime. Security didn't stop him, not because they didn't notice him, but because the VIP badge strapped to his chest shimmered with unmistakable legitimacy. And as he pushed past the final checkpoint and stepped into the fan lounge proper, his breath caught in his throat. Because there, standing alone in a far corner, drink in hand, clad in a sharp black suit, aloof and untouched by the crowd, was his master, his god, his reason for existing, the boss, Leo Skyshard. Tears flooded his eyes before he could even process what he was seeing, as his knees weakened and his body trembled, but his steps refused to stop. His heart raced, his vision blurred, but that familiar aura, calm, detached, untouchable, drew him in like gravity. Master, that's my master. The words slipped from his lips like a prayer, cracked and broken as he clutched the badge on his chest. Every fiber of his being screamed in joy, disbelief, and a desperate longing that had been buried for far too long. And as he took a step forward, his thoughts unraveled into memory, as he remembered the day his world had ended. The day, the boss, disappeared. Just over a year ago, all Earthlings had arrived on planet Terra Nova aboard a giant Ark ship, and upon landing, the local authorities began hunting his master, the bosses, as if he were some petty criminal. That day, his master somehow evaded capture and escaped the godforsaken planet with the help of a shady woman, but ever since then, Chaosbringer had heard nothing. He had been the boss's right-hand man, the only individual outside of family to ever see his face or know his real name. Because Leo trusted him enough to reveal that information, Leo knew that Chaosbringer worshipped him like a god and would die before betraying him, and hence he was the only man outside of his family to get the privilege to know his real name and face. For Chaosbringer, Leo was the man he had sworn his life to serve. And although the rest of the Earthlings only knew him as the masked assassin, the boss, without ever learning his true identity, Chaosbringer had always known. But then, the mask vanished. The mission stopped. The phone lines went dead. And suddenly, Chaosbringer was lost. He waited. For days. For weeks. For months. Sitting alone in the shadows of a crumbling underworld, praying his master would return. But Leo never came back. And Chaosbringer lost everything. He spiraled. He wept. He broke. Until one day, eyes bloodshot and spirit nearly dead, he saw a face on the galactic television. Cold. Unreadable. Terrifying in its power. Leo. Unmasked and exposed. But with the same ruthless aura that once ruled Earth's underworld. And in that moment, Chaosbringer's soul reignited. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He sold everything. Took loans from the worst people in the galaxy. Begged, bribed, and bled his way into acquiring one thing. A single VIP meet and greet pass to the interstellar circuits. And now, here he was. Broke. Exhausted. Sobbing. But alive. Because his master was alive. And nothing else mattered. He moved across the lounge, oblivious to the stares his trembling form began attracting, or to the smudged makeup streaking down his cheeks, as he finally reached the man who once commanded an empire from the shadows. "I'm here, master, are you happy to see me?" He wondered, as he looked towards Leo's visage, his vision blurry because of the tears in his eyes, as he dropped down to his knees and kowtowed. "I have found you at last, my lord. Your humble servant is at your service once again," he said, pressing his forehead to the ground, as his voice trembled with sincerity. His words stunned Leo, who hadn't expected anyone from his past to approach him like this, as the faintest flicker of doubt crossed his otherwise blank expression. Something about this man's posture, the reverence in his voice and the pain in his eyes, stirred something within his fractured memories, as Leo felt his stomach roll. He couldn't place the memory. But instinct told him that he knew this man. Or rather, had known him, once. And as Leo stepped forward, ready to question him, another presence intervened. As Mianfei appeared in an instant, stepping between them as she placed a firm hand on Chaosbringer's shoulder and began dragging him away. "Don't touch me, you filthy woman," Chaosbringer protested, voice rising in distress. Lord, she's manhandling me," he complained to Leo, expecting him to save him. However, Ni and Faye's icy glare instantly shut Leo down, as he remained rooted to his spot in confusion. "No, you crazy psycho," Faye said loudly, for everyone nearby to hear. "I won't let you harass one of my students," she said, as she made it seem like Chaosbringer was nothing more than a crazy fan, so that the crowd would chuckle and move on. Although that wasn't the real case. Then, once she dragged him away from the eyes of the crowd, she leaned in close, so that only Chaosbringer could hear the next words coming out of her mouth. "Shut up and play along. Or you'll blow his cover." And with those words, Chaosbringer froze. Then slowly, reluctantly, he nodded, as Leo watched from a distance, his brows furrowed ever so slightly, as he tried to make sense of what he'd just witnessed. He didn't understand it. Not fully. But if there was one thing Leo was certain of, it was that he and this man once shared a connection. A connection deep enough that, whoever he was, he had likely meant more to Leo than anyone else in this entire room. And although Faye had dragged him away for now, Leo silently resolved to meet him in private, later. "Are you okay? Is that some crazy fan that you're actively trying to avoid?" Serena asked calmly, pulling Leo back from his cloud of thoughts, as he nodded in response. "Yeah, he's one of those fans who thinks I'm his master. It's weird, but what can you do about them?" Leo replied, playing it cool as he shrugged his shoulders, completely in line with his usual character. Few minutes later, Ni and Faye returned to the hall alone, with Chaosbringer nowhere to be seen in tow. Her expression was unreadable, though the slight downward curl of her lips and the furrow just above her brow made it clear, whatever had happened outside hadn't gone smoothly. She adjusted the cuff of her sleeve as if brushing off lingering annoyance, drawing no attention to herself as she slipped back into the buzzing flow of guests and chatter. Leo, however, had been watching the exit door like a hawk as the moment he spotted her, he moved. "Who is that guy?" he asked bluntly, intercepting her with a calm but firm tone. "What did he want? I'm supposed to know him, aren't I?" However, despite his bombardment of questions and demanding tone, Faye didn't flinch at all. She simply exhaled through her nose and gave him a familiar look, one Leo had come to associate with half-truths and withheld information. "Now's not the time for you to know who he is," she replied softly, but her words carried weight. "I took care of him. And I think, when you're ready, you'll see him again." Leo's eyes narrowed, frustration quietly simmering beneath his neutral exterior. "At least tell me his name, and what my connection was with him," he demanded. But Faye only shrugged and stepped past him. "Like I said, Leo, all in good time," she said, remaining adamant on her decision, as she left Leo frustrated. Without another word, Leo turned towards the exit door that Faye had just come back from and moved to chase after Chaosbringer, only to be stopped by Faye's arm. "The team's heading into their private lounge," she said, her tone now clipped with command. "And you have to be there too. Fans paid a pretty penny for that private interaction. I don't care about that. Your contract does," Faye said with authority, as she did not wait for his reply and just grabbed him by the arm and steered him firmly back toward the hallway where the rest of the Rodova team was already filtering into the exclusive meet and greet room. Inside the private lounge, the atmosphere was different. More intimate. More rehearsed. Su Yong was already charming a group of fans near the center, his smile easy, his voice animated, while Minerva sat on one of the plush sofas with two young nobles hanging onto her every word. Yu Shen stood by the corner, engaged in what looked like a sincere conversation with a dignitary's daughter. And Leo. Leo sat quietly near the back, one leg crossed over the other, sipping from a glass he hadn't touched since entering. His eyes were distant, his thoughts elsewhere, trapped between past echoes and the memory of a man kneeling before him, calling him Lord. As Serena watched painfully from a few feet away, she tried to ease into his orbit with the same soft grace as before, flashing polite smiles to the other guests, sharing a few light jokes with nearby fans. However, eventually as she slipped closer to Leo and leaned down with a playful expression. "I don't suppose I could get your autograph, Mr. Skyshard." Leo looked up, met her eyes for the briefest second, then turned away. "Sure, Grab me a paper and pen, he said flatly, seemingly uninterested. It wasn't cruel, but it was distant, and Serena knew what distance meant. She laughed softly, more to mask her bruised pride than anything else, and excused herself, blending back into the crowd with a serene smile plastered across her face as she did not bother him anymore through the day. He's not in the mood. Pushing won't work right now, she thought, her mind already shifting gears. She'd have to be smarter. More tactical. Leo wasn't a man who could be won with flattery or seduction, not tonight at least. Later that evening, within the plush confines of the Alcazar clan's private hotel suite, the serene smile Serena had worn all day had completely faded. What do you mean you don't have his private cell number? Her father thundered, slamming his palm against the marble table, as the sound echoed like a gunshot. Tham! Serena flinched instinctively, her breath hitching as her father's fury surged. What did you even accomplish from this meeting then? I spent a fortune to get you into that private room and now you're telling me you achieved nothing of significance. He barked, voice sharp and cutting. Serena stood stiffly with her hands clasped behind her back, head bowed low in contrition, as her throat felt tight with unshed tears. Father, please understand. Leo Skyshard. He isn't like other men you know. Approaching him requires patience and subtlety. He's too cold, distant. If I push too hard, he'll shut me out completely. Serena said, desperately making her case, as the older man huffed in disbelief. Damien began pacing all around the room to cool off his anger, however, it didn't seem to work, as even after a few seconds had passed, his furious breathing did not seem to tone down. Useless, he spat, turning sharply. You had one job to do. Just one. And you failed, he said, accusing Serena of being worthless, as a streak of tears began flooding down Serena's eyes. How will you make this right, Serena? Do you even have a plan? Or do you not have that either? Damien said furiously, as although he did not expect Serena to actually have a plan, surprisingly she did. I can make it right, trust me father, I can, Serena said, her voice trembling as she forced herself to meet his gaze. There was a man, someone who approached Leo and called him, Lord. Someone from his past. The moment he appeared, Leo's entire demeanor shifted. She narrated, as Damien Alcazar stopped pacing. The fury in his eyes dulled slightly as he listened, his head tilting in consideration. I think, Serena continued, if we can identify that man and learn who he really is, we might finally gain insight into Leo's real self. His past. His values. What he guards most. Which can give us an opening into understanding his true nature and how to get to his heart. Serena proposed, as she held her breath, watching nervously as her father carefully lowered himself into the armchair, steepling his fingers in thought. So you're betting everything, on this mystery man? He asked, his anger now a blade sheathed in ice. As Serena nodded once, her expression unwavering despite the weight behind his words. She believed in this lead. Because in that brief encounter, she had seen something rare, an opening. A crack in Leo's otherwise impenetrable wall. If that man was part of the event, Damien muttered, then he'll be in the records. Leave it to me. I'll pull the right strings. There was a pause. Then, his voice dropped into a warning tone, soft, yet sharp as a dagger. Very well. We'll do it your way. But pray you're right, my daughter, because if you're wrong, it won't just be your position within the clan that collapses, it'll be your future. Serena bowed her head deeply, the chill of those words settling into her spine like frost. I understand, she replied meekly. Because if she failed, the price wouldn't just be her pride. It would be her freedom. For if she failed, her fate would be sealed, not with chains, but with a wedding band to a vulgar noble twice her age, where dreams of spending a lifetime with a gentleman like Leo Skyshard would wither in silence. The morning of the quarter-finals, Sky God Arena, warm-up room. The lineup from the previous match remained unchanged heading into the quarter-finals, as Yu Shen, Leo, Suyong, Minerva, and Enzo geared up for battle. Their opponents today were the Nature Military Academy, ranked 10th overall in last year's power rankings. It was the first time in 4 years that Nature Academy had clawed their way into the quarter-finals of the interstellar circuits, and this year, their momentum seemed to be the real deal. With 2 Grandmaster-level fighters anchoring their roster, they didn't just look strong. They looked like genuine threats, and within the Rodova warm-up room, they were given the respect they deserve. Minerva opens the fight today. It's our safest play, given her versatility as an archer, Yu Shen began, his voice steady. If she loses the first match, Leo goes in next. Handles the cleanup. But if she wins, then Su Yang follows up, keeping our momentum strong. While I serve as the fail-safe in case all hell breaks loose. He paused for a moment, glancing at each of them in turn. Their grandmasters are no joke. I don't expect clean victories or easy exchanges. You might not win every bout. You might not even walk away unscathed. His eyes hardened. But if you fall, take something with you. An arm, a leg, anything. Make sure the next guy has an easier job finishing the fight than you did, understood? He asked, as Su Yang and Leo nodded back in response. Good, although there's no chance in hell that we lose today, we must not fuck this up. Yu Shen concluded, clapping his hands, as the team pulled in for a huddle. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. They said together, as Yu Shen patted Minerva on the back, before she made her entrance out to the arena. The quarter-finals, Sky God Arena, main stage. The atmosphere inside the Sky God Dome was absolutely electric. Unlike the earlier days of the tournament, where a few empty seats could still be spotted in the nosebleeds, today the arena was filled wall-to-wall with spectators. Not a single space remained unclaimed, as the interstellar circuits had officially entered its most thrilling stage. From this point forward, every match promised fireworks, and the crowd knew it. They didn't just cheer, they howled, sang, banged drums, and waved glowing banners with the names of their favorite fighters, turning the arena into a roaring storm of noise and passion. First quarterfinal match of the day, Lee, and its Rodova taking on Nature. Derek's voice boomed across the stadium with barely contained excitement. It's sure to be a thriller, Derek. A mega clash for sure, Lee replied. Rodova ain't moving past Nature easy, that's for damn sure. The Rodova side is unchanged today. No surprises there. Captain Yu Shen is sticking with the same 5, Minerva, Leo, Su Yang, himself, and Enzo as backup, Derek noted. But on Nature's side, Lee interjected, big changes. Aside from their Grandmaster Elf duo, Captain Jahong, the 11th Swordsman, and Orion, the Elemental Mage, they've swapped out Harlan, Silva, and Paige. In come Drew, Mar, and Joni. All 3 shield paladins. I think they're going to pull off the turtle, Derek, Lee said with a knowing tone. Send one Grandmaster into open strong, then rely on their tanks to stall and buy recovery time for the rest. Ah, the classic turtle strategy, Derek chuckled. I think it was Rodova Military Academy that invented it 30 years ago in one of the most thrilling wins. But now they're on the receiving end of their own creation. Nature Academy today is not trying to win every match. But if they can last 20 to 30 minutes per fight and grind down Rodova's stamina, it could be game on, as that would be enough time for the Nature Grandmasters to recover. What a bold strategy call by Captain Jahong. At that moment, the battlefield shimmered into view as the arena's surface transitioned to the famed classic terrain. A flat, open field blanketed with just 2 inches of light beach sand. To the untrained eye, it looked simple, but every seasoned fighter understood its complexity. The sand improved footing for powerful strikes and pivots, offering incredible traction. Yet at the same time, it betrayed stealth and finesse, each movement leaving subtle trails that made deception harder. For defensive fighters, it was paradise. For assassins and scouts, it was treacherous. It's a fan favorite for a reason, Derek said. Clean footing. No obstacles. Just raw skill on display. That's all you want at this stage. Then, the lights dimmed slightly, as 2 figures stepped onto the sand-gripped field. Minerva emerged first, clad in sleek archer's gear, her longbow resting against her back as her eyes locked onto the center. There was no smile on her face, only cold focus. Across from her came Orion, the elf elementalist. Draped in layered robes that shimmered with embedded mana veins, he walked calmly, hands loose at his sides, as arcs of elemental power danced faintly around him. The referee stood between them and raised a hand. "Fighters ready?" he asked, as both nodded in acknowledgement. "Then begin. Orion acted first, raising a single hand as a curved water wall surged up behind him, while two spheres of flame materialized over each shoulder and began to orbit him in slow, deliberate circles in what had to be flaming orbs. Minerva wasted no time either, as she sidestepped across the sand, her movement smooth as her boots barely disturbed the grains beneath her. As within the first 3 seconds of the fight starting, she unleashed her first arrow with a sharp snapping sound of her bow. FWOOSH. The arrow traveled at breakneck speed, looking poised to impale Orion in the chest, but it was unexpectedly blocked by an invisible wind wall as it collided and bounced off harmlessly against the invisible shield. An invisible wind wall when you've already summoned a visible water wall. "What an interesting strategy by Orion," Derek said, as Minerva rolled to the side, already knocking her next shot. Orion's feet barely moved, but the battlefield did, as pillars of stone rose abruptly to intercept her lines of sight, while snaking vines slithered just beneath the sand, trying to catch her ankles. "Beautiful control from Orion," Lee shouted. "He's manipulating all 4 basic elements in perfect harmony." "But Minerva's not backing down," Derek countered. "She's dodging everything coming her way with finesse. If she finds a clear angle to shoot from, she can pin him down." It was at this moment that Minerva launched 3 arrows in rapid fire, the third one splitting midair into a scattershot of glowing flechettes, that forced Orion to raise a second wind wall to absorb the impact. However, seizing the moment, Minerva sprinted across the right flank and drew a volatile arrow crackling with red light, an explosive shot. FWOOM. The impact sent a plume of steam roaring into the air as it collided with Orion's water wall, creating a brief visual smokescreen. And Minerva didn't waste it. She fired a grappling bolt into one of the raised stone pillars that Orion had summoned earlier and zipped upward into the air, using the elevation to her advantage as she began to rain down arrows from above like a divine storm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Her arrow rain forced Orion to move for the first time in this fight, as he carved a sigil into the air with both hands, causing the sand beneath him to crack open, launching him sideways via a burst of compressed air, as he used the evasive move Jet Geyser. Then came his counter. He extended his arms wide as the elements converged. Fire, water, wind, and earth spun together in a spiraling surge of energy, a devastating technique known as elemental spiral. The vortex erupted outward in all directions, whipping sand into a storm and catching Minerva mid-reload. Boom! She hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the fall, her armor scorched and scraped, but she rose again, wounded but not broken. Orion now hovered slightly above the field, his aura blazing with elemental energy. As Minerva's instinct screamed at her to run. This was his known finisher. She had studied about it in the tapes, and hence to avoid the fate of being caught in his strongest attack, she reached back and pulled her strongest arrow, a radiant, mana-charged shot known as Piercing Moonlight. She pulled the string taut, her fingers shaking under the strain. As Orion brought both palms together, condensing the elements into a singular lance, unleashing his strongest attack, the Primal Judgment. The duo fired at the same time. Bomb! The collision of mana rocked the arena. Heat and pressure swept across the sand as the resulting shockwave made even the audience flinch. As the dust settled, only one figure remained standing. Orion. Minerva, both shattered and shoulder seared black from the blast, knelt in the sand. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. As the referee stepped forward, raising his hand. Winner, Orion of Nature Academy. Cheers. A roar burst from the Nature supporters, their voices elated and thunderous. They had drawn first blood, and their strategy was working. What an opener! Derek exclaimed. That was a monster Grandmaster fighter match-up, Lee added. Rodova just took a heavy hit to start the quarterfinals. Minerva is out. Quarterfinals, Sky God Arena, Match 2. Leo, you're up, Yu Shen said the moment the referee declared Minerva defeated, his voice calm but focused. Leo didn't reply. He simply stretched his neck once, rolled his shoulders, and began walking toward the arena, his blue-gray combat attire rustling faintly with each step as he stepped into the blinding lights of the main stage. As per Rodova's plan, if Minerva fell early, Leo was the designated cleanup man. He was faster, meaner, and far more efficient at ripping back momentum with ruthless precision. And considering the possibilities of who Nature Academy could send next, this was the most logical call. There was no way they'd leave Orion in for another fight, not after he'd just unleashed Primal Judgment and torched most of his mana reserves. He was spent. He had to be pulled back. That left only two real options. Either they sent in one of their shield paladins to waste time and stall for recovery. Or, they sent their captain, their ace, Jahong. Had Su Yong gone out next, the shield paladins would have been the natural answer, suited to absorb his overwhelming power. But because it was Leo who stepped forward, everything changed. His speed, unpredictability, and relentless aggression made him a nightmare matchup for heavy defenders. So instead, nature was forced to respond with force. The crowd collectively leaned forward as Leo reached the center of the sand-grip field, his expression calm as ever, as if the pressure and expectations of the crowd did not bother him at all. And then, from the opposite tunnel, a tall, silver-haired elf emerged, his robe flowing behind him, and his sword slung across his back as if it weighed nothing at all. It was Jahong, captain of Nature Academy, and their strongest warrior. Here we go. Derek's voice crackled through the arena. That's Jahong stepping out. Nature Academy isn't pulling any punches now. This isn't a stall round anymore, Derek, Lee added. They're trying to knock Rodova off balance before momentum swings back. They want Leo gone. Both fighters arrived at the center, standing at their designated starting spots, yet the distance between them did not feel anything much at all, as both fighters were known to have quick feet. They were both predators, two fighters with contrasting philosophies. As while Leo was the cold-blooded killer, Jahong was known to be the ever-elegant swordsman, who did not so much as break a sweat in battle. And the crowd cheered for them both, split down the middle, with banners waving high and voices rising in unison. Then, as both fighters drew their weapons and slid into battle stance, the referee raised a single hand, his presence steady. "Fighters ready?" he asked, as Leo's eyes narrowed, while Jahong's grip tightened around his sword, as they both gave the subtlest nod. And with that confirmation, the referee dropped his hand, as he yelled, "Begin! Dash 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 dash." As soon as the referee yelled, "Begin," both Leo and Jahong dashed toward one another in a blur of motion. Ching! Asterisk. Their blades clashed mid-air in a precise, explosive strike, the impact sending tiny ripples across the sand beneath their feet as the crowd first gasped and then erupted. But although their first exchange looked even to a distant onlooker, in reality only one fighter had drawn blood. Leo remained unscathed, while Jahong, the elegant elven swordsman, now bore a faint red line running down his cheek, proof that even in a dead-even exchange, Leo had moved faster. "Leo makes the first cut," Derek shouted. "The Rodova underclassman's speed is too much for Nature's captain to handle." They clashed once, and Leo already won that trade, Lee added, leaning into the mic. But Jahong didn't seem rattled. If anything, the cut only brought a faint glint of approval to his eyes. Without a word, the elven swordsman shifted his stance, as his blade shimmered with wind-enhanced mana. Then he vanished. Zing! Asterisk. Pedal step. Leo barely tilted his head as a strike aimed at his neck missed by a hair. His instinct screamed louder than the crowd as he flipped backward, landing lightly on the heels of his feet as Jahong came again. Heavenly Arc. A sweeping slash that cut the wind in a perfect crescent came towards Leo at blinding speed, as Leo ducked beneath it and immediately activated mirror world, producing 5 illusions of himself as he darted around Jahong in a blur. But the elf didn't hesitate. He twisted his sword with a flick of the wrist and thrust it straight through the closest clone, then turned and slashed through another, ignoring the fakes entirely as he locked onto the real Leo with a sharp, knowing glare. "He's not fooled at all," Derek exclaimed. "The elven captain can see through the decoys with ease." Once Leo realized that mirror world had failed, he changed his strategy and moved again, this time vanishing entirely with vanish and reappearing behind Jahong with twin daggers aimed for his kidneys. However, Jahong spun faster than he anticipated and blocked both strikes with the flat of his blade, his timing flawless. Spiral bloom. A flurry of strikes erupted from his stance as he spun, each cut laced with wind energy that forced Leo to retreat again, deflecting 2 blows and narrowly dodging the third by backflipping over a swirl of kicked-up sand. Cheers! The crowd roared with approval. As for the first time in this tournament, they could enjoy such an even and high-level exchange, as neither fighter seemed to have the upper hand. Leo was faster and was desperately trying to find a way through the elf's guard, by darting around his form. However, each time he lunged, Jahong met him clean. Counter for counter. Rhythm for rhythm. As the elven swordsman seemed to have rock-solid fundamentals, high perception and great instincts. For the first time ever, Leo felt as if his opponent could read and predict him before he made moves, as fighting Jahong was by no means a walk in the park. Jahong could see through the feints, the illusions, the flickers of movement meant to bait mistakes. And Leo felt it. His lungs burned, his muscles tightened, and for the first time in a long time, he felt pressure. But even now, he wasn't afraid. He was calculating, waiting, as he decided to take bigger risks, if Jahong wasn't falling for the small ones. And then, as they exchanged blades once again, Leo stumbled backwards, pretending to be thrown off balance, as he provided his opponent a big opening that was too enticing for Jahong to ignore. "I got you now," the elf said, as he rushed in with a devastating sword technique, called the Crimson Lotus Descent. It was a high-speed, vertically dropping strike, infused with wind and fire, aimed directly at Leo's chest. However, although Leo baited the move by showing a wide stance, it was actually all a well-calculated trap, as Leo knew the limits of his speed precisely. The crowd stood. The commentators leaned in. And Leo smiled. He didn't dodge. He didn't flinch. He caught the strike with crossed daggers at the last possible microsecond. And activated full counter. Bomb. Asterisk. The recoil was deafening. The redirected force, amplified by Leo's own mana, surged back through the blade and into Jahong's body like a hurricane compressed into a fist. The nature captain's body flew across the sand-gripped field and crashed violently into the far wall, knocking the breath out of the entire arena. Silence. Then, what? Did Leo just flip that attack back? That was the most ridiculous counter I've ever seen. The referee stepped forward, staring at Jahong's unconscious form embedded into the wall, before raising his hand. Winner, Leo Skyshard of Rodova. The Rodova crowd exploded with thunderous applause, chants of, Skyshard, echoing across the dome. Leo, still standing calmly in the sand, slowly rolled his neck again as he turned and walked away without celebrating the win, as he just gave the cheering crowd a usual thumbs up. He'd taken a few bruises in this fight. But he'd baited and timed his moment to perfection, ending the fight in a single move, as only he could. As he has managed to show the universe once again, what his real potential truly looked like. Ladies and gentlemen, Leo goddamn Skyshard, remember this boy's name. This is a kid that's destined for greatness. What a fighter. What an entertainer. What a warrior. Derek said, as he seemed to have lost his mind over Leo's performance, as the Jumbotron replayed the last moments of the fight, again and again. As Leo walked back toward the contender stands, the roaring applause still echoing behind him, Captain Yu Shen passed him on the way to the arena, their gazes meeting briefly in passing. Yu Shen gave him a subtle, approving nod, mouthing the words, "Good work, Skyshard." As, "Thanks," Leo muttered back, his voice low and flat as he continued without slowing, his steps unhurried as he returned to the Rodova bench. He sat down with a quiet exhale, the adrenaline finally beginning to drain from his limbs. That had been close. Too close. Had he been one moment slower, Jahang's blade might have pierced his chest instead of flying backward. But before he could sink too deep into reflection, whop! A sharp slap landed between his shoulder blades. Nice flip, assassin boy, Su Yong said with a smug grin, stretching his arms like a man clocking out for the day. You made that elf do cartwheels. Leo didn't respond, only exhaled through his nose. But Su Yong wasn't done. Sliding behind him without warning, Su Yong gripped Leo's shoulders and started what could generously be called a massage, though it felt more like an interrogation technique. Leo flinched. What the hell are you doing? Shut up and let me build my highlight reel, Su Yong replied coolly, his thumbs digging in harder than necessary. Yu Shen's about to finish this fight alone, so this is probably my only shot of getting any screen time today, he said, as the Jumbotron suddenly cut to the Rodova bench, as if on cue. Look at that camaraderie. You love to see it, Derek said over the speakers, as Su Yong purposefully held back from looking towards the cameras, as he tried to look as candid as possible while kneading Leo's shoulders with the enthusiasm of a gym bro. Meanwhile, Leo sat stiffly, squinting like he was bracing for impact, as snap! Camera flashes fired. The media houses got their feel-good article and the crowd chuckled, their cheers mixing with warm laughter as the scene played out. It was a rare moment of levity between two warriors. And even Leo, despite the pain, let the ghost of a smirk pull at the edge of his lips, as he couldn't help but feel amused at the lengths Su Yong went just for some silly footage. However, this attention did not last long, as soon the cameras cut back to Yu Shen, who wielded his dual swords with lethal intent, as his opponent quaked before him. Begin, the referee announced, as the audience expected an entertaining fight. However, to their absolute shock, there wasn't even a moment's struggle, as Yu Shen started and ended the match within 9 seconds. His bloodline trait, suppression, activated the moment the bout began, freezing his opponent in place, locking his muscles tight and rendering him unable to move. All the poor fighter could do was stand there, paralyzed, watching in horror as Yu Shen strolled toward him at a leisurely pace and rested his blade against his neck to end the match before it ever truly began. Sorry, little mutt, you might be a good tank, but you're not cut out for the big leagues, Yu Shen said coldly, ending the match with a final, cutting insult, as the crowd grabbed their hair in disbelief. Whoa, that was short. Derek exclaimed. Seems like nature's turtle strategy is backfiring hard, Lee added. If their tanks can't buy them time, then what are they even here for? No matter how weak their regulars were compared to Yu Shen, they'd have lasted longer than 9 seconds, that much I can guarantee you. Derek said in disbelief. Sorry, mutt, you're not built for the big leagues, sums it up just right. It's a brutal comment to make to a warrior, but in this case it's unequivocally true. After Yu Shen took out the first, the next shield paladin entered the arena. This time it was Joni, the bulkiest of the shield paladins, covered head to toe in silver blue armor, his tower shield crackling with defensive runes. The referee didn't waste time. Begin, he announced, as Yu Shen dashed in again, his movements impossibly fast for a master warrior to follow, as Joni simply activated the skill, Iron Fortress, and reinforced his stance with mana, hunkering down like a wall of steel. His strategy was to weather as much punishment as he could and buy his team some time. However, he had clearly not expected just how hard Yu Shen was about to hit him. Boom! With a flick of the wrist, Yu Shen's blade glowed with force and slashed clean through the shield's center, cracking both the weapon and the will behind it. Joni staggered, stunned, before Yu Shen's follow-up strike landed on his chestplate, knocking the wind out of him and ending the fight, as Yu Shen stepped on his defeated chest while pointing a sword to his throat. Winner Yu Shen. Rodova gets the point, the referee announced, as Joni was immediately carried out of the arena, while Mar made his way in. Begin, the referee announced, once more the last filler shield paladin took his starting spot, as interestingly, instead of staying rooted to his spot and defending, Mar roared and charged like a raging bull. Ag, he yelled, as he swung down his massive shield with a mana slam, as Yu Shen ducked under it with ease and slid in with a diagonal arc, his blade cutting through Mar's shoulder guard and spinning him to the ground like a rag doll. Fight over, Yu Shen wins. The referee announced once again, as Yu Shen stunned the crowd by how effortlessly he defeated his opponents. As the 3 filler tanks did not even last 2 minutes against him total. 3 fights. 3 knockouts, Li said, shaking his head. Yu Shen is unstoppable. It all comes down to Orion now. Can he pull off what Leo Skyshard did against Button Academy and clutch a win for his team? Derek asked, as Orion returned to the field, his expression tense, his breathing still uneven, and his mana reserves clearly not yet recovered. This is bad, Li muttered. Orion's walking back out there with potentially less than half his peak mana reserve, and Yu Shen looks like he's just getting warmed up. Yeah, Li, it doesn't look good for Orion at all. Derek concurred as Orion took his starting spot and muttered the brave words. Let's do this. Dash 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 dash. As soon as their fight began, Orion summoned flaming orbs again, but they sputtered, smaller, weaker than before, as Yu Shen didn't give him time to set the field. He charged in low, striking from the side as Orion raised a partial stone wall, but it cracked on impact. The elf slid back, already drenched in sweat, pulling up a gust with wind pulse to buy room. However, Yu Shen tore through it with brute strength. Water wall. Orion pulled up a last-ditch water wall to slow down Yu Shen's charge, before doubling down with a water snare to trip Yu Shen if he made his way through. However, Yu Shen jumped over the water wall entirely with a weird mobility technique and landed right before Orion, having bypassed his trap. Oh shit, Orion cursed, as he tried to run away by flying off. However, Yu Shen stepped forward again, not giving Orion a breath of space, and this time swept low, feinted high, and then slammed his blade into the elf's exposed midsection with a thunderous breaker slash. Thump. Orion hit the ground hard, groaning, as his passive mana protection barrier that protected his body at all times started to flicker and show signs of weakening. This is bad, he thought, as he turned and tried to summon yet another elemental spiral to hopefully attack Yu Shen and change the momentum of this fight. However, before his move could materialize, Yu Shen broke his nose through the blunt end of his blade, and followed it up by pointing a sword to his neck to end the fight. Winner, Yu Shen of Rodova. The referee declared, pushing him off Orion, as the crowd roared in approval. Roar. The crowd erupted with wild cheers as the Jumbotron displayed the final result in massive gold letters. Rodova wins, 5-1. Unbelievable. Yu Shen just wiped out 4 fighters in a row, Derek shouted. Nature gambled, and lost, Li added. Their turtle strategy didn't just fail, it cost them the match. The other quarterfinal matchups proved just as entertaining as Rodova's clash, with the rising level of competition turning every battle into a spectacle of grit and skill. However, despite the intensity, there were no major upsets this time around. Clarence Academy, Geneva Academy, and Thumba Academy all secured their victories, resulting in a highly anticipated, yet predictable, semifinal lineup. Rodova would now face Clarence in a long-awaited showdown, while Geneva prepared to clash with Thumba in the other bracket. And that's it from our end today, folks. Stay tuned for the after-match analysis with Matt and Tommy, and see you all tomorrow for the semi-finals, Derek said, as he signed off for the night, bringing an official close to today's fighting. Inside the Rodova team villa. Minerva lay resting in one of the villa's spacious lounges, her breathing steady yet shallow as Rodova's private medical team moved quietly around her, working with practiced precision. Though the Sky God Arena's emergency staff had stabilized her immediately after the match, Orion's final strike had left damage deeper than what could be treated on site, as now, it was up to the Academy's elite doctors to oversee her full recovery, though even with their expertise, time did not seem to be on their side. Standing nearby with his arms crossed and his brows furrowed, Yushen finally asked what had been weighing on him the whole time. What's the verdict? Will she be back at full strength tomorrow? Or should we sit her out? The question caused everyone in the living room to turn dead silent, as the lead doctor glanced up, his expression apologetic. She'll recover to about 80% by morning. But there will be faint pain while moving. She can push past it and still put up a good performance, but that will delay her healing speed significantly. It's best if you let her rest tomorrow, so that she can be back to her best for the finals, the doctor suggested, as Yushen let out a slow sigh and shook his head in dismay. No, we can't let her fight if she's not at 100%. We definitely need her fully fit for the finals, he muttered to himself, before turning towards Su-Yong and Leo, as he locked eyes with both of them. It's on us now, boys, we don't let Minerva step in tomorrow unless it's absolutely necessary. Yushen instructed, as Su-Yong leaned back with a casual grin, raising his hand for a dramatic stretch. Always ready to solo the enemy team if you'd just let me. I mean, I've had one damn appearance so far, he said, registering his protest, as Leo let out a quiet chuckle beside him. Su-Yong had been whining for the past hour, jealous that Leo got to fight while he sat idle, as he felt itching for a fight. Hence when presented with a chance to fire shots at Yushen's lack of fighter rotation, Su-Yong took it with both arms. Oh, you'll get your turn to fight tomorrow, Yong, Yushen said with a faint smirk. You're opening for us. Yes. About damn time I see some actual action, Su-Yong said, perking up instantly, as he flashed a victorious V sign. But the moment of joy did not last long for him, as Yushen followed that announcement with a cold warning. But remember, if we win tomorrow, your next match will probably be against Su Ran in Geneva. As listening to those words, Su Yang's expression changed immediately, as all the happiness was wiped off his face. So unless you want to fight him like Minerva, running at 80%, keep yourself in one piece tomorrow. Yushen warned, as Su-Yong scoffed at his remarks. If there was one person Su-Yong despised more than anyone in the universe, it was Su Ran. And for him, defeating that man wasn't just a professional courtesy. It was personal. Don't worry. I'll fight Su Ran at 120%, even if I had both my legs chopped off. That lowborn's only purpose for existence is to be stomped down by me when the situation calls for it, Su-Yong said, as he sat back down with his arms crossed and seemed to be all charged up for tomorrow's fight. This idiot is surprisingly easy to manipulate, Leo thought at this moment, as while Su-Yong was an excellent fighter, who was undoubtedly street smart and not a dumb fool, when the topic of conversation was about his nobility, or genetic superiority, he responded like a spoilt child. It was a topic he could just not walk away from, and that made it very easy to manipulate his emotions or fire him up, which Yushen did beautifully right now. By mentioning his brother and their impending fight should they win tomorrow, he had now ensured that Su-Yong would not only win tomorrow, but also be mindful to preserve his body, as his real clash was against Su Ran the day after. Yep, Yushen is a good captain, Leo concluded, as he gave the captain a small nod of acknowledgement the next time their eyes met. Meanwhile, at an undisclosed military base. With every performance Leo delivered on the battlefield, Commander Jackson's desire to recruit him into the Universal Army grew stronger. But the deeper he dug into Leo's past, the less any of it made sense. So let me get this straight, Jackson said, his voice sharp with disbelief. The Department of Transportation claims the payment to Leo Skyshard came through a training incentive, supposedly on behalf of the local government of Terra Nova. His assistant nodded grimly. But when you contacted the Terra Nova officials directly, they said they're actually suing Leo Skyshard for fraud and for disclosing classified information. Another nod. And the photo in his government file doesn't match his face. Correct, sir. No record of the case being registered in the Universal Court system. None, sir. It's like it never existed. Jackson's jaw clenched. And the investigating officer who filed the original report, he just happened to die yesterday during a standard patrol. Yes. Routine incident, or so they claim. Jackson leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. This is ridiculous. We're going in circles. Nothing lines up. Not the records. Not the photo. Not even the damn charges. And now the one guy who might have cleared it up is conveniently dead. He scoffed, eyes narrowing as he stared at the scrambled report in front of him. What even is this convoluted garbage? Jackson said, as he massaged his brows, trying to make sense of this massive mess. The most likely explanation is that someone powerful has gone to great lengths to try and hide Leo's past. This can either be work of the main branch of the Mu clan, where they picked up the identity of Leo Skyshard from an actual living person on the planet of Terra Nova, who might be a fugitive needing to start a new life, so he just sold his identity and name to the Mu clan for their help in starting new. Or this can be work of the evil cult trying to plant a sleeper agent within our fold. However, considering how he cleared the background check for both Rodova Military Academy and Horizon Dominion Group, it's unlikely that the boy has any ties to the evil cult. Then again, his memory loss might have helped him slip past the psychological evaluations, Jackson said, as he clicked his tongue. This dead officer's report, he mentions here that a woman named Nian Fei helped Leo Skyshard evade the authorities and escape the planet before his arrest. Go look into her. Who is this Nian Fei? I feel like if we find who she works for, we will know who exactly facilitated Leo's identity cover-up, Jackson instructed, as the assistant saluted him once before leaving the room curtly. Semi-finals, Sky God Arena, Match 1. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Derek's voice rang out across the Sky God Dome, clear and energized. Welcome to Day 6 of the Interstellar Circuits, and more importantly, welcome to the first semifinal match. The air's different today, Derek, Lee added smoothly. You can feel it. This is no longer just a tournament, it's a war between the 4 finest academies in the galaxy, all fighting for a spot in the grand finals. And what a way to kick things off. Derek continued. It's Rodova Military Academy versus Clarence Military Academy, 2 powerhouse teams that have proven themselves at every stage so far. This match might very well be more intense than the finals, Derek, Lee said with a grin. Because we have inside information confirming that Rodova's star archer, Minerva, is not match fit today. Despite being present on the Rodova bench, she is reportedly not expected to be rotated in. That's right, Derek confirmed. Minerva took a heavy blow during the quarter-finals, and although Rodova's doctors have done everything they could to get her back to peak condition, she's reportedly not recovered enough to be subbed in. That effectively makes this a pure 3 versus 3 showdown, Lee noted. 3 Grand Masters from Rodova, versus 3 Grand Masters from Clarence, and that, folks, is about as even as a fight gets. You're not wrong, Derek said. And if you look back a few months, Clarence came within a hair of defeating Geneva Academy in the pre-circuits friendlies. That tells you everything you need to know about their caliber. This could be Rodova's toughest test yet, Lee agreed. They might not even make it to the finals this year. At this point, there was a brief pause in the commentary as the camera feed cut to a sweeping overhead shot of the packed Sky God Dome, showcasing the thunderous crowd in all its glory. And how do you know it's the semifinals? Derek asked rhetorically. You know it because of the very special spectators joining us here today. Sitting high up in the royal box is none other than Monarch Chris Sanders, Lee announced. He's here today with his harem of beautiful women, enjoying the fights the brave young warriors put before him. And just a few rows over, Derek added, we also have the acting head of the Du clan, Patriarch Du Marino himself, and just look at that aura, Lee. You can practically feel it through the screen. The gravity in the arena definitely shifted when he walked in, Lee said. Undoubtedly one of the most important people in the universe currently, and he's here today to support his son Du Tufan, from Geneva. That man isn't just powerful, he's a walking legacy. And speaking of legacy, both academy principals are also here today, sitting side by side. They're waving to the crowd now, putting on a smile, but you know they're feeling every inch of pressure deep down. As the camera returned to the center of the battlefield, the arena lights dimmed just slightly, before flaring again in a golden hue as the first fighter emerged. "And there he comes," Derek announced, his voice surging with excitement. Out walks Su-young for Rodova, the Academy's underclassman prodigy, who seems to be given the very important task of scoring that first win, by Captain Yushen. "I think that's a brilliant choice by Captain Yushen. We haven't seen much of Su-young's skills at all in this tournament so far. And hence, he can pull off some interesting surprises now that could throw Clarence fighters off their game plan," Lee added, as Su-young pumped his fist in the air to hype up the crowd who were chanting his name in support. Su-young, Su-young, Su-young. The crowd erupted into thunderous chants, his name echoing across the arena as Su-young stepped out onto the stage, and he basked in every second of it. "Yeah, baby. Now that's what I'm talking about," he shouted, pumping his fist in the air, flashing his signature grin as he played to the roaring audience. Unlike the more reserved fighters who shrank under the spotlight, Su-young thrived in it. He didn't just tolerate the attention, he fed off it, as moments like this were exactly what he prayed for, as the energy of the crowd only made him stronger. "Gu Lan, Gu Lan, Gu Lan," the Clarence supporters chanted as his much tinier opponent walked out into the arena with a mage staff in hand. Compared to Su-young, who looked like a demon in human form, his 5 feet 8 inches opponent looked like a baby in comparison, as the size difference was almost comical. "Hello brother Su. May the best fighter amongst us win," Gu Lan said in a meek voice, as Su-young instantly frowned. "Aw, shut up Tiny, I'm gonna smash you to a pulp." "So stop with the kindness," Su-young replied, as the Rodova supporters and the neutrals roared at his comments. "All right, enough smack talk. Take your positions," the referee instructed, as both Su-young and Gu Lan took their starting spots, allowing the referee to signal for the start of the match. Begin. As soon as the referee's voice rang out, Gu Lan wasted no time, launching himself 40 feet into the air in a graceful vertical ascent, his robe fluttering beneath him as he rose higher. Gu Lan takes to the skies immediately. Derek narrated. He's trying to gain control of the field from the start by going airborne. He's gone all the way up to the legal arena limits, at 40 feet. And although flying so high will constantly drain his mana, it's worth it if it gives him more time to prepare his spells, Lee added, as it seemed like Gu Lan's game plan was to stay out of Su-young's reach initially and take his time to prepare some of his stronger spells. However, Su-young didn't even blink when he saw Gu Lan rise so high, as with a sharp breath and a flex of his calves, he exploded upward in a vertical leap that shattered expectations. Boom! Asterisk. A shockwave erupted from the ground as Su-young soared after him, using a movement skill called double jump to gain a second burst of lift midair. "Wait, what? Su-young's in the air?" Derek gasped. "That's double jump. He's attempting to close down a 40-foot gap with pure leg strength and a midair technique." Gu Lan's whole game plan just got shredded, Lee added. He thought he'd get more time to prepare his spells if he went airborne, however, he surely did not expect this kind of vertical reach by Su-young. What a display of athleticism by the Rodova youngster. Shua. Still in midair, Su-young raised his sword and brought it crashing down toward Gu Lan like a falling meteor. As eyes wide with panic, Gu Lan hastily conjured Arcane Dome, the shimmering barrier forming just in time to absorb the brunt of the descending blow. Boom. Asterisk. The collision sent a ripple of energy across the air, as Gu Lan was thrown downward like a comet, crashing into the ground below. Crash. The impact created a shallow crater of sand, and while Gu Lan emerged from it mostly unharmed thanks to his barrier, his composure was visibly shaken. He'd thought he could dictate the pace, however, he was now on the back foot before his first spell could even charge. That was surely not the opening Gu Lan wanted, Derek said. He was planning to wear Su-young down from the air, but that vertical dominance is gone now. And look at Su-young, Lee added. He's not even breathing hard. He just jumped to the legal flight ceiling and forced Ji-Yu Lan into a grounded exchange. But he doesn't even look fazed. Tap. At this moment, Su Yong landed lightly in front of his stunned opponent, rolling his neck, as he smiled casually. "What's the matter, high flyer?" he taunted, tapping his blade on his shoulder. Out of altitude. Ji-Yu Lan didn't answer. His hands flickered with light as he prepared a new spell, but the smile on Su Yang's face only widened. The real fight had only just begun, and Su Yong wanted to put on a power show for his fans. He had not gotten a proper chance to shine in this tournament so far, so he was taking this opportunity to do exactly that. Sky God Arena, Semi-Final Match -1. Gale Palm. Ji-Yu Lan yelled, thrusting his staff forward as a powerful burst of wind exploded outward. FWOOSH. Asterisk. The force hit Su Yong square in the chest, pushing him back several meters across the sand as Ji-Yu Lan quickly ran backwards, trying to widen the distance between himself and Su Yong. However, Su Yong only grinned as he stopped himself with a firm stomp, before raising his sword high into the air as he prepared for a retaliatory move. Mountain-splitting slash. He yelled as he brought his blade down with terrifying force, and from the tip of his sword, a massive wave of compressed mana exploded forward, that looked like a tidal arc of destruction capable of tearing even a mountain in half. Boom. Asterisk. Ji-Yu Lan's eyes flared as he activated rapid movement, vanishing just before the sword slash collided with him. Instead, the attack slammed into the arena wall behind, carving a deep gash into the reinforced alloy, as it rattled the surrounding stands. Crack. Asterisk. Tremor. Ooh, the audience yelled, grabbing onto the edge of their seats, as the shaking only increased their excitement for the fight. Dust and debris flew from the explosion, but Ji-Yu Lan had already reappeared to Su Yang's left, panting, as he raised his staff once more to conjure a new attack. "Elemental summon, try fury," he said, as he summoned 3 orbs, one of fire, one of wind and one of lightning, before sending them towards Su Yong, first from above, then from the side and the last straight on. However, despite the terrifying attack coming his way, Su Yong did not even so much as flinch, as he sidestepped the overhead strike, deflected the second, and charged straight through the third. Crackle. Asterisk. The lightning orb slammed into his blade, the metal surface getting momentarily charged as it emitted sparks. However, it did not slow Su Yang's speed at all. He burst forward again, faster now, footwork refined, aggression dialed up. As Ji-Yu Lan panicked, feeling helpless as he saw one of his better attacks neutralized so easily by his opponent. Horizontal dash. At this point, Su Yong used horizontal dash to cover the distance between himself and Ji-Yu Lan in the blink of an eye, as Ji-Yu Lan was forced to respond with Arcane Dome as he created a net of safety around himself. Boom. Asterisk. Su Yong swung with all his momentum, as under his ridiculous power, the dome cracked slightly under the very first blow. Boom. A second swing, as he widened that crack even more. Shatter. Asterisk. The dome exploded into shards of light on the third swing, as Ji-Yu Lan stumbled back, panic in his eyes as he tried to create space again, but Su Yong was already upon him. "Try running now," Su Yong muttered, as he spun on his heels, putting all the force of his hips behind this slash, as he conjured the move Spiral Fang. FWOOSH. His blade surged with rotating energy as he cleaved horizontally with a spiraling strike that slammed into Ji-Yu Lan's gut and sent him hurtling across the field like a ragdoll. Crash. Asterisk. Ji-Yu Lan hit the ground hard, skipping across the sand, as his staff went flying off his hand, before he rolled to a stop, groaning and bleeding with a gnarly wound to his midsection. The crowd held their breath, wondering if Ji-Yu Lan could continue. However, as he struggled to get back up, the referee immediately stepped in. Winner, Su Yong of Rodova. The referee declared, signaling for the medics to rush in, as Roar. Asterisk. The audience erupted in approval. Now that was a dominant victory, Derek finally said, his voice low with awe. "You thought Leo Skyshard was the only impressive underclassman that Rodova had? Well, think again. Lee added, as Su Yong sheathed his sword and turned to the crowd, raising both arms as the chants began anew. Su Yong, Su Yong, Su Yong. The crowd roared, as he pumped his fists to hype them up once more, just like he did before the fight began. Keep the energy flowing guys, Rodova needs your support, he said, clapping and hyping, as he waited to see which fighter from Clarence stepped up next, before tagging out. To nobody's surprise, the number 2 fighter to step up was Clarence team captain and their most impressive fighter, Jessica Jones, the peerless Spearmaster. As once her entry was confirmed, Su Yong signaled for the referee to tag him out. Change, Rodova, the referee announced as Su Yong began his walk back to the bench, at a leisurely pace. At the same time, Leo stepped out onto the battlefield, his eyes locked on the arena ahead. Clap. Their hands met in a crisp high five as they crossed paths, an unspoken exchange of respect between warriors. Give her hell, Su Yong muttered with a menacing grin, as Leo didn't reply, but only grinned back slightly. It's Spearmaster Jessica who walks out for Clarence after their opening match defeat. However, surprisingly it's Leo Skyshard who has been sent to face her by Captain Yushen. And I'm not sure if it's a sound strategic move. But what do you think, Derek? Lee said, as Derek let out a long sigh. Tough. I don't know what Yushen's thinking here. Leo Skyshard fights with a dagger as his primary choice of weapon, and although he's fast, he's at a massive range disadvantage against a fighter like Jessica. I'm not sure what Yushen's hoping for here. Because tactically this looks like a blunder, Derek replied, as he did not seem convinced by Rodova's choice to send Leo. Jessica is also their strongest fighter. Underestimating her could prove costly for Rodova, as instead of sending their best fighters Yushen, they've sent an inexperienced underclassman to face her. Could Yushen be scared of Jessica? Does he want Leo to weaken her before facing her himself? Lee wondered, as the commentators were left scratching their heads on why exactly had Leo been sent for this fight. Jessica blinked in disbelief as Leo stepped forward to face her, as a sharp, self-deprecating laugh escaped her lips. Seriously? She scoffed, her grip tightening around her spear. Yushen sent you, an underclassman, to face me. Is that how little he thinks of me? Her voice was laced with fury as she dropped into a low stance, the tip of her spear digging into the sand. Leo didn't answer. He simply narrowed his eyes, tilting his head slightly with a look that said it all, as he made the "bitch, please" expression. He offered no words of retort, no theatrics. As frankly, he did not give a rat's ass about how insulted she felt. Because, if she thought she deserved a better opponent than him, she was about to get one hell of a reality check. Fighters ready. Begin. The referee announced, as both Leo and Jessica carefully approached one another at a steady pace. Neither opted for a reckless opening, as both of them were far too seasoned to squander the first exchange. They circled one another cautiously, their feet sliding silently across the sand-gripped surface, as the subtle shifts in weight betrayed nothing, yet suggested everything. Jessica, gripping her spear with practiced finesse, was the first to probe the waters, as she lunged forward and delivered 2 precise jabs aimed at Leo's center of mass. Swoosh, swoosh. She delivered the attack with enough speed to punish a lesser fighter, but Leo just swayed away from the first and sidestepped the second with unbothered ease, as though her attacks had no more significance to him than gusts of wind did to an unmoving boulder. Then, in the same fluid breath, Leo flicked his wrist and sent a dagger hurtling toward her neck, as he forced Jessica to deflect it at point-blank range. Clang! The sound of metal rang out sharply, as Leo's blade ricocheted off harmlessly to the side. This brief exchange told both fighters everything they needed to know about the other, as Jessica now knew Leo was fast, much faster than most, and Leo confirmed what he'd already suspected, that Jessica's spear control and reaction time were the real deal. Step. Both disengaged by a half-step simultaneously, before planting their feet with a renewed resolve as the first moment of true offense unfolded. Overbearing thrust. Jessica called aloud, as her spear shimmered with coiled energy and the air around its tip exploded into a spiraling gale. But Leo had already melted from view by then. Vanish. He slipped through the veil of vision, fading into invisibility mid-motion as the swirling force tore past where he'd been a fraction of a second earlier, slamming into the reinforced arena wall with a deafening boom, drawing a hiss from the barrier enchantments and a fresh wave of adrenaline from the crowd. Jessica spun on instinct, sensing the danger approaching from behind. Yet before her spear could fully turn, Leo reappeared in a blur, his twin daggers flashing toward her flank, but she parried the first and forced space with a sweeping arc that kept him from pressing further. "You're quick," she muttered, resetting her stance, her knuckles tightening. "You're loud," Leo replied, already circling her again, as he looked for a new opening. However, Jessica didn't wait for another exchange to play out on Leo's terms, as she suddenly surged forward with a lateral burst of movement that kicked up a wave of sand behind her, her spear spinning in a practiced flourish before she unleashed Piercing Crescent, a horizontal slash of mana-laced pressure that hummed violently through the air like a sonic blade. But Leo, anticipating the momentum shift, invoked Blade Switch at the last second, as his entire form flickered as he swapped positions with a secondary dagger he'd thrown moments prior behind her blind spot. Swoop. Leo reappeared with a low crouch and his real blade drawn back for a clean counter. Yet Jessica with her superior reflexes and impressive speed twisted into a back kick the instant she felt the air shift behind her, as her boot grazed Leo's chest just enough to send him sliding back a few paces across the sand, as she narrowly avoided his perfect counter. However, to her annoyance, despite being pushed back, Leo did not lose his footing, as his balance remained steady and perfect, giving her no openings to exploit. Oh. The crowd gasped, sensing the tension rise, as both fighters reassumed their original fighting stance without so much as a breath wasted. Then, Jessica lunged again, this time chaining Triple Fang into her charge, as she unleashed a series of rapid-fire thrusts that targeted Leo's throat, heart, and abdomen in such swift succession that the naked eye couldn't even keep pace. Yet, Leo, activating parallel processing, improved his movement speed and instincts to their limits, as he twisted his upper torso to avoid the first thrust, lowered into a roll to evade the second, and parried the third with a braced dagger strike that reverberated through his wrist but helped evade the danger. Persistent, Leo muttered under his breath, as he feigned retreat, baiting Jessica forward with a half-faltered step. And to his joy, Jessica took the bait, closing the gap again with a short hop and a vertical stab, this one powered with a sudden pulse of wind mana. But just as her spear tip was about to land, Leo invoked Celestial Veil as the transparent barrier covered his frame in a mere instant, and deflected Jessica's spear harmlessly off his body. What? Jessica muttered in disbelief, as she did not even understand the origin of the mystical barrier that saved Leo's body or when Leo even conjured it. As she stepped back in confusion, only for a heartbeat, trying to figure out what exactly went down. However, a heartbeat was all that Leo needed. Leo surged forward with no illusions this time, as he ducked under her recovering guard and thrust upward with his dagger, forcing Jessica to intercept the blow mid-air with the bottom of her spear, which cracked under the collision of mana-forged steel and reinforced wood. Still holding her ground, Jessica retaliated with Heaven's Thrust, a concentrated mana-infused lunge meant to pierce through barriers and end fights clean. But Leo's eyes narrowed, his breathing calmed, and his entire frame locked into place as he chose to receive the strike head-on. Full counter. As her spear collided with the core of his stance, Leo channeled all the gathered kinetic energy through his frame and redirected it with brutal efficiency, flipping the force of her blow back into her own body with a shattering pulse of mana that traveled up her spear, into her arms, and across her chest like a sonic wave laced with thunder. Jessica gasped as her body flew backward, her feet dragging deep ruts in the sand before she lost all balance and crashed into the far edge of the battlefield, her spear tumbling from her grip as her armor sparked violently from the feedback. Silence. The entire Sky God arena went silent for a beat, as the camera cut to a half-and-half shot of both Leo and Jessica. And while Leo looked hurt from the counter, which was evident with how he was bleeding through his nose and mouth, he was still standing with his eyes looking strong, while Jessica struggled to get back up to her feet. Fighter, can you continue? Please stand up within the next 5 seconds, if you can, the referee instructed, as he gave her a 5 count. 1, 2, 3. The entire crowd counted alongside him, with the Clarence fans praying that she'd rise and the Rodova fans hoping that she wouldn't. However, the referee counted to 4 and then to 5. And Jessica failed to get up in time, as the injuries she racked up just seemed to be too much for her to recover from. Winner, Leo Skyshard of Rodova. The referee shouted at that moment, just as Jessica groaned and rolled to her side, defeated but conscious, as she felt her pride to be more battered than her body. Roar. Cheers. The crowd erupted into frenzied applause, the sound crashing over the arena like a tidal wave of disbelief and awe, as Leo relaxed his shoulders in victory. Blood still trickled from his lip, but his eyes remained locked in that cold, unfazed stare, as he looked down on Jessica and said, "Still think you're good enough to face our captain? Or was I enough?" His remark, of course, drew a number of cheers from the Rodova fanbase. However, he didn't care about the applause. He just wanted her to remember who she'd called unworthy. Sky God Arena, semifinal match 1 continued. Jessica Jones is down, and Leo Skyshard walks away victorious, putting Rodova Academy 2-0 up in the semifinals, Derek announced, his voice edged with disbelief, the weight of what had just unfolded still sinking in. "I don't think anyone saw this coming, not like this," Lee added, leaning forward. "Not with this level of clinical precision. That was a surprisingly dominant performance from the youngster, as someone ought to stand up and applaud him, because that fight was undoubtedly one for the history books. That fight wasn't a brawl. It was a calculated dismantling," Derek continued. "Leo never rushed, never overextended. He baited, he read, he reacted, and when the moment came, he finished it without hesitation. Flawless awareness. Ruthless execution. This is the assassin class at its most refined. And while you can argue over who the strongest fighter in this tournament is, I don't think anyone would question that Leo Skyshard is, without a doubt, the most dangerous assassin on the circuit." "Well said," Lee replied, letting out a dry chuckle. "There's something terrifying about that lad, isn't there? You watch him move, you see the silence in his decisions, the poise. This kid's going places. You can feel it in your bones. If he's like this now, what will he be a year from today?" As the camera shifted to the Rodova bench, Leo could be seen quietly taking his seat, his eyes already fixed once more on the center of the field, blood on his lips but no hint of emotion in his gaze as usual. Unlucky for him, he can't receive any medical treatment just yet, despite the injuries he's sustained, because for now, he's still an active participant in this round. Derek said, his tone dipping slightly as he added one final note about Leo, before Yu Shen's fight began. Step, step. And just like that, Yu Shen stepped onto the battlefield. Unhurried, unshaken, as there seemed to be no pressure in his stride, only purpose. Rodova was already in a strong position, with both Su Yang and Leo securing victories in the opening bouts. So even if he were to fall here, the juniors had already paved the path forward, and as long as he left his opponent wounded enough, Rodova would remain in control. However, in contrast, his opponent walked with a long face, worry etched into his very soul, as he knew that everything was essentially on him now to somehow help Clarence Claw win back. It's Satoru Mew taking on Yu Shen now, and it's a battle between two dual sword wielders with a very similar fighting style, Lee announced, as Satoru unsheathed both his swords and assumed a cross-blade fighting stance. "Fighters ready. Begin." The referee's voice echoed, and instantly, both men shot forward with a flash of movement, the air cracking behind them from the sheer force of their acceleration. Clang! Asterisk. Their twin blades collided at the center of the battlefield in a blinding flurry, sparks bursting into the air as metal grated against metal, each strike delivered with deadly precision. Yu Shen's expression remained unreadable, his feet rooted with iron discipline as he pivoted cleanly and swung for Satoru's side. But Satoru blocked with his left-hand blade and countered with a diagonal slash, forcing Yu Shen to hop back half a step. Then, Snowpiercer. Yu Shen slashed the air with his right blade, conjuring a jagged crescent of razor-thin ice that shimmered like glass as it carved a deadly path toward Satoru. But Satoru spun sideways, narrowly avoiding the arc, his boots grinding into the sand as he retaliated with Windflayer Waltz, a twin-blade technique that unleashed 3 rotating wind-edged strikes in rapid succession. Yu Shen blocked the first, parried the second, and leaned under the third, his cape flaring behind him from the residual pressure, before he drove his knee into Satoru's gut and pushed him back with a palm strike that crackled with freezing mana. Crack. Hiss. Frost spread rapidly along Satoru's vest, lacing up toward his collar before he slashed through it with raw mana to prevent his upper body from freezing entirely. He's trying to slow him down. Yu Shen's using his ice not just offensively, but tactically, Derek commented. If Satoru can't move fluidly, his twin blade style will crumble. But Satoru wasn't down yet. With a sharp breath, he roared forward again and unleashed Fangs of the Void, a brutal forward rush where both his swords glowed with dark energy and left trails of black mana arcs behind every swing, as Yu Shen's eyes narrowed in panic looking at the move. Frigid Bloom. A circle of frozen lotus petals erupted beneath his feet as he raised both blades and spun once, deflecting all of Satoru's strikes while simultaneously sending a pulse of freezing mist into the air that began to blot out the visibility between them. FWOOSH. The mist clung to skin and metal alike, chilling the bones and dulling one's reflexes, as the temperature within the battlefield dropped significantly. Damn you! Satoru growled as he leapt out of the mist, hoping to catch Yu Shen on the other side. But to his horror Yu Shen wasn't there. Instead, Yu Shen was in the air, having anticipated the timing of his charge perfectly, as he came down from the top with his blades glowing in a unique blue aura. Blizzard Fang. Mid-air, Yu Shen spun with both swords and from that motion, a cluster of ice spears burst outward like a frozen nova, catching Satoru off guard as they tore into his side. Gah! Satoru dropped like a stone, blood spraying from his hip as he buckled and tumbled into the arena floor, sliding across the sand as frost clung to his armor and joints. Gasp! The audience sucked in a collective breath, as Yu Shen landed softly a moment later, his blades relaxed at his sides. In contrast, Satoru struggled to rise after the injury, blood seeping from a deep gash along his ribs. Still, he pushed his body up using his swords. Still, he refused to fall. You haven't won yet, he spat, pain etched into his every breath. As Yu Shen simply shook his head in response, and replied, "Oh, but I have, you just don't know it yet." Then, with a single, unhurried step, he surged forward again, his blades spinning into a cross-shaped arc as he unleashed his final, decisive technique. Frozen Eclipse. Both swords converged in a spiraling cross-slash, releasing a final burst of ice energy that crashed into Satoru's chest with an echoing roar, as it knocked him clean off his feet and sent him flying into the arena wall. Crash. Asterisk. He hit the barrier wall and slumped forward, completely still, seemingly knocked unconscious, as the referee called the match. Winner, Yu Shen of Rodova. Roar. The arena erupted as Rodova secured their third consecutive win. Unbelievable, Derek whispered. Rodova just took a massive lead in this semifinal with a clean 3-0 sweep against the 3 Grandmasters from Clarence. Su Yang. Leo Skyshard and now Captain Yu Shen, Lee echoed. 3 fighters. 3 victories. And now, their path to finals looks almost assured. I mean it's a given Lee, Yu Shen is making way for Su Yang to come up once again, and I don't see any possibility where Su Yang struggles against 2 master-level warriors, when the Clarence Grandmaster he faced earlier couldn't even make him break a sweat. Derek commented. And just like that, less than 7 minutes later, Su Yang stepped in and tore through Clarence's final 2 contenders without breaking a sweat, cementing Rodova's place in the grand finals. Couple hours later, Geneva Academy locker room, Sky God Arena. Following Rodova's dominant 5-0 sweep in the first semifinal, Geneva Academy answered with a commanding performance of their own, dispatching Thumba Academy with a confident 5-1 victory to secure their place in the finals. And yet, despite the scoreline, there was no eruption of celebration within the locker room. No cheers, no boasting, just a low hum of tension. Because this year, Rodova was different. In previous tournaments, a win over Rodova felt inevitable, an eventuality, not a gamble. But now, with Su Yang, Leo Skyshard, and Yu Shen in the lineup, there was no longer an easy path forward. 5 Grandmasters versus 4. On paper, Geneva still had the advantage. But when your opponents were warriors of caliber like Su Yang, Leo, and Yu Shen, 3 monsters who could each score multiple victories in a single round, the single Grandmaster advantage barely seemed to matter. Hence, as the teams sat down to discuss their plans for tomorrow, there was a visible tension within the locker room, as Captain Ramos sat with his arms crossed, and his eyes glued to a projection screen as he replayed highlights from Rodova's latest match. "That kid," Ramos muttered, pausing the feed on a frame of Leo's full counter against Jessica. "This Leo Skyshard, he's a problem. A first year," added Damien Aroth, "and yet he's already on par with Yu Shen. Hell, maybe even more dangerous. Did you see the calm in that counter? He doesn't panic," said Mikhail Sarin. "He doesn't hesitate. His whole style is precision. He doesn't waste energy, and has the mentality of a veteran warrior despite his young age." TCH, Su Ran scoffed from the corner, clearly irritated by the direction of the conversation. "Stop drooling over the bastard. You lot praise him like he is the second coming of the monarch Dupravel, when we have the actual second coming of the monarch, his own flesh and blood in our team." "Well, maybe he is, I mean, no offense to Darnell. But I don't think he could have taken on Jessica like Leo did. Because, the last time he faced Jessica 5 months ago, Darnell was knocked out clean within 3 minutes, Damien reminded, as he pointed out how their team had first-hand experience on just how dangerous Jessica was and how hard it was to actually best her, despite how easy Leo made it seem today. The room went still for a beat, everyone having flashbacks of their own practice fight against Clarence, as they once again realized just how terrifying Rodova were to beat that team 5-0. "Forget about Leo. What about Su Yang? That kid is no less impressive," Mikhail said, as he drew attention to Su Yang, which immediately irritated Su Ran. "Don't worry about Su Yang, I'll make sure that bastard regrets ever walking onto the field, because tomorrow, all the elders of the Su clan, and our father will surely be watching our contest, which makes it the perfect stage for me to humiliate him," Su Ran said with venom laced on his tongue, as Ramos scoffed sitting beside him. "Oh, you sound awfully confident, like it's child's play to beat Su Yang. But in case you're thinking it's going to be easy, I'll tell you now, it's not. Su Yang is very powerful based on what he's shown so far, and you won't have an easy time against him," Ramos said dryly, as he reminded Su Ran to stay humble till he proved his competence over Su Yang. "I sound awfully confident, because I am awfully confident," Su Ran declared in retort, as he glared Ramos in the eyes. "If there's one person I hate more than anyone else in this universe, it's him. And his smug whore of a mother who keeps flashing that legitimate wife tag like it's holy. I was born stronger. I was born better, even though my mother was a commoner. And tomorrow, I'm going to prove it," Su Ran said, clenching his fists. However, Ramos didn't even flinch despite his declaration. "All right, settle down," he said, raising his palms as he tried to calm the room. "We're not winning this with emotion. We win this with planning and control," Ramos said firmly, his tone calm but resolute. "So here's the final formation. I'll open the match tomorrow, set the tone early and give us the momentum we need right out of the gate." He glanced around the room, locking eyes with each team member to ensure they understood. "I'll take Su Yang," Su Ran said next, his voice confident, and without hesitation. Ramos nodded. "Good. Damien, you're in if Minerva shows." "Perfect," Damien replied with a small smirk, raising a thumb. "She's an archer. I'm a tank. She's practically made for me." Ramos patted him once on the shoulder before turning to the next. "Mikhail, that puts Leo in your hands." "I've been studying his footwork all week," Mikhail answered with a quiet nod. "He's fast, faster than most, but I think I've got the necessary speed and battle acumen to shut him down." Finally, Ramos turned to the one person he didn't need to give instructions to. Darnell. I'm the finisher, Darnell Nunes said, flashing his signature grin. If anyone slips, I pick up the kill. Wouldn't have it any other way. Damn right, Ramos said, patting him on the back, as the final plan seemed like a lock. Tomorrow was sure to be a war. And the pride of both academies were on the line. Meanwhile, in the Rodova team villa. The atmosphere was equally tense, as the team acknowledged the fact that they were in the endgame now. I'll open the fighting, get the momentum in our favor from the start, Yu Shen declared, as he began laying out the final plan. Su Yang, you will handle your brother Su Ran. And although I'm allowing you to settle all personal grudges, I expect results, Yu Shen added, as Su Yang gave him a sharp nod in response. Skyshard, you go in when either Damien or Darnell comes in. We need you to do your thing tomorrow, Yu Shen instructed as Leo gave him a nonchalant thumbs up. And lastly, Minerva, you will take Mikhail, Yu Shen said, as Minerva grinned ear to ear. Oh, that boy is cooked if he faces me in battle, Minerva said, as her confidence elevated the mood of the room. We are at a one-man disadvantage here. And realistically, we can't expect Enzo to do much of anything. However, if it comes down to it, we will need you to buy as much time as you humanly can, Enzo, because our victory or defeat may very well be decided by it, Yu Shen said, as he looked into Enzo's eyes, who gulped nervously in response. It was clear from his face that he did not have the confidence to face any of the Geneva fighters at all. However, Yu Shen did not want to rotate anyone else from the roster into the team either. I'll do my best, he said eventually, as Yu Shen gave him a firm pat on the shoulder. We have already achieved what was expected of us by bringing Rodova to the finals. Now, even if we lose, we won't have shamed our academy, so there's nothing for us to lose anymore. That being said, we have all worked like madmen this past year for this tournament, and since we are at the finals, we may as well go all the way and win it. And I think we can. Because honestly, we are the strongest Rodova team to enter the circuit in the past 22 years. Yu Shen said in conclusion, as he reminded the team, that they had nothing to lose now but everything to gain. Undisclosed military base, office of Commander Jackson. The room was quiet, the air inside smelling like high-quality cigar, as Commander Jackson leaned back in his chair and clicked through the preliminary summary of the latest report. His fingers drummed lightly against the wooden desk, slow, methodical, until the file opened with a soft ping and the first set of documents flashed across the screen. Confidential Intelligence Dossier. Subject: Muiyan Fei alias Mu Fan, True Identity. Origin of investigation. Association with Leo Skyshard ID, RSK117-CB. Submitted by Special Intelligence Unit, Department of Internal Security. Abstract. Subject Mian Fei, registered instructor at Rodova Military Academy, is identified as the individual who assisted Leo Skyshard during his escape from planetary jurisdiction on Terra Nova approximately 14 months prior. Following the discovery of a forged transit authorization document and irregular movements within restricted ports, deeper checks were initiated. Key findings. 1. Forged identity. Background credentials of Mian Fei were found to be manipulated at the Universal Systems core. Birth records, employment history, and biometric data were inserted into the archives posthumously, approximately 17 months ago, suggesting backend clearance and system override. 2. Financial trail. Analysis of payment channels used for the identity insertion traced back through 6 shell accounts, eventually linking to a black-tier financial reserve fund belonging to the Mu clan main branch. 3. True identity. Subject is confirmed to be Mu Fan, birth registry linked to the 4th-generation descendant line of Patriarch Mu Jianlong, making her the great-granddaughter of the Mu clan patriarch. 4. Fugitive status. Subject is wanted as a level 4 criminal, under charges of high-level political assassination, including the confirmed neutralization of Commissioner Drax Teldon of the Universal Oversight Committee, Sector 14, with evidence pointing to targeted clan-approved retribution. Subject is currently part of the Mu clan's diplomatic negotiations with the Universal Government for pardon under conditional immunity. Jackson's brow twitched slightly as he reached for the second file. Secondary report. Subject. Association context, Leo Skyshard and Mu Fan. Speculation based on overlapping timelines, emergency transport logs, and private registry scans suggests a high likelihood of familial or custodial relation. Subject Mu Fan's mission logs indicate protective detail orders for an unnamed youth from Terra Nova, whose physical description and early combat signatures match those of Leo Skyshard. Conclusion. Subject Leo Skyshard may be PubFuture adds. A direct offspring of a high-ranking Mu clan member. A main branch candidate, concealed under a false identity for protection. Or a political asset inserted into Rodova Academy under Mu Fan's supervision for longer-term strategic goals. Jackson's fingers tightened on the edge of his desk, as he finally confirmed the true origins of Leo's identity. So Leo Skyshard does have ties to the Mu clan after all. Fuck. Those fuckers have gotten good at forging aliases, Jackson commented, as after confirming that his handler was someone from the Mu clan, Jackson completely threw out the alternate theory that Leo might be connected to the evil cult out of his mind. As he instead became more interested in Mian Fei's crime and current situation from the Army's perspective, given how she was a level 4 fugitive. I presume there's a separate file on why she's a wanted fugitive. He said, raising an eyebrow, as the assistant nodded and slid over the final data slate. Third report. Subject. Mu Fan, aka Mian Fei. Classified threat level. Height Tier 2 clearance required. Codename. White Widow. Affiliations. Mu Clan, Intelligence Division, Subsection Black Lotus Branch Position Branch Head. Power level, Transcendent. Known actions. Political assassination, Commissioner Drax Teldon. Interception of cargo vessel UC0049 resulting in 17 deaths. Disruption of planetary elections on VEYLIS-9. Reason for immunity negotiation, Mu Clan. Influence within multiple planetary governments and direct lobbying efforts with the Universal Government's Judiciary Council. Jackson exhaled through his nose as he leaned back into the silence, staring at the neat rows of damning text. Technically, now that he found out who Mian Fei truly was, as an acting army commander he was ethically compelled to report her. After all, she was a wanted fugitive who had killed a commissioner, for heaven's sake. PubFuture adds. However, Jackson wasn't a child, he'd been in the Universal Government's service long enough to know how these things worked. Great clans and the Universal Government danced their little waltz of hypocrisy, and for members of the clan, especially for someone like the goddaughter of the Patriarch, immunity was just a matter of price. If he reported her now, she'd be gone for all of 5 minutes before some political backdoor opened and she vanished into the Mu clan's custody again. Hence, Jackson knew that there was no tangible benefit behind reporting her and that he needed to meet her instead. If she really had that kind of pull, and was Leo's assigned handler, then she was the key to getting Leo to join the army. I need to meet her and blackmail her into helping me, Jackson thought, as his gaze flicked back to the paused tournament footage on his monitor, where Leo's image, bloodied but victorious, stood frozen mid-step. The boy had brutal talent, cold focus and killer instinct. And Jackson needed talents like him in the Universal Army. Even if it meant making a deal with a devil named Mu Fan. Alicia, prepare my ship, he said finally, eyes still locked on the screen. I'm going to the Sky God Arena tomorrow first thing in the morning. And after the last match ends, I want an in-person meeting with Mian Fei, no, Mu Fan. Let's see if the White Widow is as persuasive in conversation as she is with a blade. Jackson instructed, as his assistant saluted silently before exiting the room. She had never seen the commander personally go to such lengths to recruit a soldier, however, even she understood that Leo Skyshard was worth it. The boy had the potential to become a transcendent-level warrior at the minimum, which automatically qualified him for the position of a commander. However, he could potentially even go beyond that and reach the monarch tier, becoming a galactic general, and such talents, while more common in the 6 great clans, were far and few when it came to the Universal Army. Even she had seen his recent matches in the circuits during office break time, and secretly, even she was a fan of Leo Skyshard. Hence, she hoped that the commander convinced him to join the army, because that would mean that she would someday get a chance to get his autograph in person. Meanwhile, in the Sky God Asteroid Hotel, Jackson wasn't the only high-profile individual who was visiting the legendary Sky God Arena tomorrow to enjoy the finals. As there were many VVIPs who landed on the asteroid just today, to enjoy tomorrow's grand event. "Please enjoy your stay, Lord Baxamore," the receptionist at the hotel said, as she checked Rian Baxamore into the VVIP hotel suite. Completely unaware that this high-net-worth individual, and guildmaster of the popular adventurer Guild 7 Lions, was actually an evil cult elder in disguise, who is currently in possession of the detonator that would activate all the bombs planted under the main arena. "Thanks dear, I will," he replied with his usual charm, as the receptionist smiled and blushed, blissfully unaware that tomorrow, when the circuit viewership hit its peak, he'd press a single button, and turn the Sky God Arena into a graveyard. The night before the finals, Mi and Faye's POV. Mi and Faye sat alone on the terrace of Rodova's villa, her elbows resting on the cold iron railing as she looked up at the endless expanse of stars above the Sky God Dome. Tomorrow was the final match of the interstellar circuits, and while she did not know the exact plan that the evil cult was up to, she had a strong feeling that whatever they were planning was definitely going to go down tomorrow. The finals of the interstellar circuits wasn't just a match, it was an event, a celebration of sorts. Normal people across the universe took leave from their office jobs to watch it at home with family, as viewership numbers soared far beyond the quarterfinals and semifinals, turning it into the grandest stage imaginable, where every scream, every clash, and every drop of blood could become a statement. In just thinking about it, Faye found her lips pressed into a thin line. Terror on the grandest stage possible, it will come with a heavy price. Though no details had been shared with her, the implications of what was about to go down were clear in her head. Something massive was coming, something no broadcast delay could hide, and no paid media could downplay, as once it happened, the universal order was sure to be rattled to its core. Once the righteous factions realized just how deeply the cult had embedded itself into their infrastructure, the hunt would begin. Once the fear sets in, they'll start rooting us out. One by one, every suspicious face, every unexplained promotion, every anomaly in the system. Faye thought, clenching her jaw. The purges will be brutal. And once they begin, no one will be safe, not even those like me. And definitely not him. Her eyes drifted lower, her transcendent vision allowing her to look past the villa walls, past the hedged balconies and other student rooms, and landed somewhere on the upper floors, where she knew Leo's room was. As looking at his resting figure, she closed her eyes and sighed once more. I hope I can fulfill my duty properly tomorrow, I need to keep him safe. Because after this, everything's going to get harder. Every layer of security, every background check, every paper trail, they're going to start peeling us back like rotten skin. She thought, as she clenched the rail slightly tighter. I don't understand why the elder has not introduced him to the cult yet. The thought had haunted her more than once. Leo, the boy with the potential to become a dragon candidate, was still a ghost to the cult. His existence was only acknowledged by herself and the elder she directly reported to. While no other member of the cult even knew that he existed. Given his bloodline, and his talents, Faye had no doubt that the cult would wholeheartedly support Leo, should he be introduced to them. However, it physically hurt her that they could not. Not yet at least. As while she acknowledged Leo's talent and his credentials, at the same she also understood why he was being kept hidden. Noah had been a disaster. The last dragon candidate, their brightest star, had died before reaching maturity and his death had fractured the inner circle, drained the cult of its morale, and left many elders hesitant to put their faith in another young talent too early. So this time, there was no ceremony. No blind devotion. No grand title. Not until Leo proved himself. And if he didn't, then the elder she reported to was prepared to pretend like he never existed and continue without him, with the wider cult never knowing how close they came to raising another dragon. Sigh. Faye exhaled through her nose, the cold wind brushing past her cheeks. Perhaps this was the right way. Leo would have to carve his place on his own. And if he made it, if he truly made it, then no one would be able to deny him. But if he did not, then she would be the only one hurt by knowing that they lost another star. I wonder how it will all play out tomorrow, she thought, as she stayed like that for a while longer, watching the stars that didn't move, waiting for the dawn of a day that would change everything. Meanwhile, in Leo's room, Leo lay motionless atop the sheets of his gigantic bed with one arm folded behind his head and the other resting across his chest. His eyes wide open, as he lay in absolute silence, knowing full well that he couldn't risk sleeping tonight. Not when there was an off chance he could be pulled into a ghost sleep, as he needed to be at his very best for the finals tomorrow. Sigh. Leo let out a long breath, as he felt conflicting emotions whenever he thought about the finals. As per the Rodova team plan, should Darnell Nuna step up, he was supposed to take him on. However, he still wasn't sure as to how he felt about that match-up. On one hand, throwing the match away was not in his personality. As willingly laying down for anyone, just felt wrong, no matter the situation. However, on the other hand, he was reminded of the bloodied image of his mother and family, who risked everything to try and save him. And for their sake he couldn't help but wonder, if he could truly enter the Black Serpent's Guild, if he defeated their chosen son. This is hard, Leo thought, as apart from the major considerations, he also thought about minor things like the hopes of the Rodova team members, and the instructors who had helped him train so hard for this tournament, and how disappointed they were going to be if he just folded. Ethically, he was supposed to give the best for the team he represented. However, on a practical level, giving his best for the team meant potentially risking his own future. This is very hard, he muttered again, as he kept staring at the room's ceiling, hoping that the right answer would come from within and help him make his mind. Sky God Arena, Finals Day broadcast. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen across the universe. Derek's voice rang out like thunder through the Sky God Dome, amplified to perfection. Whether you're watching from the stands or tuning in via Galaxy Net from a cozy living room, welcome to the grand finals of the interstellar circuits. It's all been building to this, Derek, Lee followed up smoothly. Months of training, a week of grueling matchups, thousands of teams across the stars, and now, only two remain. Geneva Academy vs Rodova Military Academy. The ultimate showdown. And when asked about what this year's circuit meant to him, Derek added, Captain Yu Shen of Rodova said this final was 22 times more important than any other. Because it's been 22 long years since Rodova last lifted the Circuits Cup. And they might not get to do it this year either, Lee replied with a grin, leaning forward with anticipation. Because Geneva Academy is here with fire in their eyes, 5 Grandmasters on their roster, and absolutely no plans of backing down. The Sky God Arena roared with life. Seating rows packed to the brim, the upper decks vibrated with chants and excitement. Children clutched plush figures of Su Yong and Leo Skyshard while adults waved Rodova and Geneva banners with equal pride. The merchandise stalls lining the entry gates were nearly overrun, with vendors barely keeping up with the demand for limited edition circuit jerseys, elemental glow sticks, and action figure collectibles. Even the food stalls were inundated, long queues forming for deep-fried nebula rings, solar corn cobs, and the iconic frost crystal shakes of the Sky God Arena. And just look at this place, Derek, Lee said, pausing as the camera panned across the interior. If you're not here, you're missing history. The energy, the pressure, the noise, it's electric. The feed transitioned into the highly anticipated crowd cam. First to be displayed was Dupravel Nuna himself, the infamous guildmaster of the Black Serpents, sitting stone-faced in the VIP section, dressed in a tailored obsidian cloak. Then came Mu Jianlong, the legendary patriarch of the Mu clan, his presence alone enough to silence the crowd within a 10-meter radius. An aura of command surrounded him like a sovereign halo. The arcane priestess, Crystal Storm, appeared next, her skin glowing faintly with the soft shimmer of stardust enchantments as she smiled gracefully at the camera. And finally, Fairy Twix. The Galaxy Net sensation blew a flirtatious kiss and gave her audience exactly what they expected, an exaggerated squeeze of her cleavage followed by a playful wink that sent her live viewership count skyrocketing. Classic Twix, Lee muttered with a chuckle. Bet she just broke the chat servers. Back to the action, Derek said, as the feed returned to the main platform where both academy principals now stood. Dressed in ceremonial robes, they each held one end of the gleaming golden trophy, engraved with the names of all past champions, and slowly lifted it together before placing it on the center pedestal. A fanfare erupted. Trumpets blared. The crowd roared. This, Derek said, as the camera zoomed in on the trophy, is what they're fighting for. PubFuture adds. Well, this in the honor of being called champions, Lee added with a grin. But mostly the trophy. The battle was moments away. And history was ready to be written. Meanwhile, within the Rodova locker room, the air was thick with nerves and anticipation, yet also strangely calm, like the quiet just before a storm. Each fighter was in their own corner, preparing in silence, adjusting gloves, tightening grips, fixing their uniforms, when Yu Shen finally stood up and walked to the center of the room. Everyone, he said, voice low but firm. Come in. Just for a moment. The others exchanged glances but didn't question it. One by one, they stood and circled around him. Leo, last to rise, walked over slowly and stood at the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Yu Shen took a deep breath. Regardless of the final result. I just want to say that I'm proud of all of you. The weight in his tone immediately shifted the mood as everyone in the room knew that it wasn't like him to usually get emotional. In your own way, you have all worked very hard throughout the year. And I acknowledge your efforts. Every late night, every bruise, every setback. Leo quietly rolled his eyes, not dramatically, but just enough to register his indifference. He didn't say anything, and nobody noticed. However, in his view, emotional pep talks had no place before battle as they did nothing except clouding clarity. But Yu Shen looked like a man finally letting something out that he'd been carrying too long. I have no doubt in my mind, he continued, eyes glancing briefly at Su Yang and then Leo, that even if I can't do the job this year, Yang and Skyshard will surely win it all for us next year. He paused, swallowing slightly. But I want to win it this year. I want history to remember me as the captain who led Rodova to glory again. So please, help me. Yes, Captain. Minerva shouted first, fist raised. Yes, Captain. Enzo echoed, his voice full of conviction. Yu Shen smiled faintly. You're all mature, so I won't tell you how to fight. Just remember, today, most people in the universe are watching you. So don't do injustice to your own legacy by making dumb mistakes. His voice softened now. Take risks if you have to. Trust your instincts. But keep your head about yourself. And most of all, have fun. A silence lingered after his words. Then, with a commanding nod, Yu Shen clapped once. One last chant. Let's make it count. PubFuture adds. They huddled tighter, arms overlapping, as the chant rang out through the locker room walls. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. Yu Shen broke the huddle slowly, acknowledging each teammate one by one. A firm embrace for Minerva, a quick nod and shoulder tap to Leo, a squeeze on the arm for Enzo, and a grin to Su Yang. Then he turned and walked toward the tunnel. It was time. Match 1 was about to begin. Fis HHH. Asterisk. The entrance gates to the battlefield slid open with a hiss, the ground trembling beneath the thunderous roar of the crowd as the first fighter of the finals made his appearance. Yu Shen. The Rodova captain stepped out onto the field with poise and grace, the sleeves of his black robe fluttering gently in the wind as he waved calmly to the fans, his usually stern face softening into a rare, almost boyish smile. Yu Shen, Yu Shen, Yu Shen. The chants began near the front rows and quickly spread across the stands like wildfire, rippling through the masses as thousands upon thousands of supporters cried his name in unison. And it's the Rodova captain kicking things off. Derek's voice cracked with excitement through the commentary feed. They're not messing around, Rodova's going straight for the jugular. But before the echo of his words had faded, a second gate opened on the opposing side of the battlefield. Thud, thud. Out walked Captain Ramos, the figurehead of Geneva Academy, clad in his sleek reinforced crimson armor with both blades strapped across his back. His walk was heavy, each step deliberate, his eyes locked squarely on Yu Shen from the moment he appeared. Wait a minute, hold on, is that? Lee gasped. It is. It's captain versus captain. Ramos versus Yu Shen for the opening match. Derek shouted, nearly lifting out of his chair. The finals couldn't have asked for a bigger start than this. The crowd's volume spiked yet again, like a second explosion of emotion detonated across the arena. Fans of both academies leapt to their feet, waving their banners, punching the air, their cheers drowning out the sound of even the arena's internal comms for a few seconds. This was it. 2 captains, 2 mega academies, 1 final match to decide the title. And it was all starting, now. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.